But that's even setting up even more for CJ Kurtz. To bookend it, lost to Maryland as a freshman in the Natty, beat Maryland in the national championship.
Dude, Hogan!
Time, through,
God! Welcome back! Episode 17 of the Mitchell Pehlke Lacrosse Show presented by Duquesne. More on the later on TLN. Notre Dame. Team of
Destiny, dudes.
Doogs, we just started the show. Can you cue us in? How we doing, Doogs? Talk to us. What happened?
I gotta be honest, we're talking about this Team of Destiny. I do not know how it's not Notre Dame. And the national championship game is Notre Dame versus Duke. Notre Dame is 3-peat, baby.
How Notre Dame lost? They go out the game? Is that what you're talking about? Talk to us. How are you feeling? I'm feeling fine. Would have been the best season in Ohio State history if they made the quarterfinals, so. Truth. But to that, before we hop in, did we get a lot of DMs?
Of course.
What were they saying?
You know, the people love to scream at you when you guess.
When you're down.
When you're on top.
Yes, true.
When you're on top of the world.
Yeah.
You know,
what was the worst one we've got?
You can't be on the Kavanaughs. You can't be on your knees anymore for the Kavanaughs.
Definitely a lot of glazing.
Yeah. And look, a part of me did. I mean, I told you guys during the pre-show a little bit, since 2021 when I got into podcasting, I've been wow, podcast, freshman, the Notre Dame teams during that year, we lost to Maryland in overtime by 1. 2022, they were out, so I've always been on this core group of Notre Dame players for the most part. Jake Taylor, Chris.
You've always been a player guy, not so much team guy.
Right, even Virginia. I think if people really listen to me, especially on the Crease a couple years ago, Virginia, I was very high on. I was definitely a Schonberger guy. I definitely fall in love with players and capabilities, but it was sad. The part of me did die yesterday. Yeah, that was a very sad way to go out. Freaking Hoagie over here. Oh, congratulations!
Yep.
And I just read it in his voice.
So hold on, we gotta set the scene real quick. Tell the fans what happened.
Yeah, so mid-third quarter, I just tweeted, I was like, welcome to Foxborough, Notre Dame.
Second quarter.
No,
you're tweeting this in
it was late second quarter, and then you probably saw that and you were like,
I saw. See, look, Hoagie's built for Twitter. Anyone that's been on Twitter knows. Go follow him. Just kill him. Jump the head. What is it? Jump the head.
James _Hoagie Biz.
This guy's a natural on Twitter.
Definitely.
His support through Twitter is great addition. What he thinks though, I've been on Twitter. I was born by the Wolves. I was born on Twitter. And I know a reverse chicks when I see one. I saw James Hogan be
calling out right away.
And he's trying to be congratulations, welcome to Foxborough. No team cannot be stopped today. They looked like they couldn't be stopped. The only person I can stop them is this guy with the reverse chicks.
Penn State fans are welcome. I just said you guys a championship week.
Look,
I physically ended the Notre Dame 3-peat.
Yeah, and people are asking me, who deserves more credit for the win yesterday? James Hogan with his tweets or Matt Sheeran?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I think I ended the Notre Dame 3-peat. Penn State fans, you're welcome. But, I mean, that was one of the crazy games. It was 12-6. Yep. Penn State gets one, 12-7. You're still I don't know. Then it's 12-8. Okay,
wait. I think it might be out of reach for Penn State, but you never know. And then when Traynor hits that air gate kind of shot, 12-9, you go, all right, they're right in this thing. And then the fourth quarter, they just blew it wide open. Notre Dame had no answer.
Yeah, I mean, from my position, it absolutely out-coached. Yeah. And I know, you have to put it a little bit on the offense just for not figuring it out. But, at what point do you either, one, not make an adjustment to get your best defender in Sean Light onto Matt Traynor when he looks unstoppable? Why don't you at least try to make some sort of adjustment from the midfield unit, which they had no answers for that zone. And I know that it's on the offense, sure. It could be on a couple players you want to call out, but for me, it's change up the personnel a little bit for that midfield unit.
It all happened so fast.
They didn't even, they did Notre Dame. The reason I'm okay, I'm actually okay with them deserving to lose because they did uncharacteristic things not getting the chase outs, not earning themselves extra possessions.
It's the little things. That's what those games come down to. It's what happens in between the lines.
100%.
Us playing at Ohio State.
100%.
That's what it came down to. Every game like that, it was at that caliber.
Honestly, though, me looking at this game, Kev's talked about this in the past, and he said, I think before the NCAA tournament game, he was like, look, I've been saying they're going to put it together, and at this point, I just don't think they are. I think it's too little too late. And then obviously that they blew out Ohio State last week, and then everyone was like, oh, my God, they're back. If we're being real and looking at this game or their Notre Dame season as a whole, the story of their season was they never were able to figure it out. They figured it out for one game, and it was the first round of the NCAA tournament game. Besides that, they have had long droughts all season long. They had it in the Ohio State game too, but they were able to overcome it. and then another 20-minute drought. They didn't score in the fourth quarter, and with 5 minutes left in the third, a 20-minute drought to end that game. They went on Penn State on an 8-0 run to finish that thing. So the story of Notre Dame's season, I just think, is they had the talent. They just couldn't do it, and they put it together for one game.
I'm going to step in really quick, and I think the drought thing is getting a little bit overblown. If you get to 12 goals, and you're getting 12 goals no matter how you do it. Like, if they didn't get any droughts and they're getting 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and it's equaling 12, are we going to be like, okay, they don't have to go through droughts, so like it's all fine? I think that we're letting off the Notre Dame defense off the hook way too much.
Yeah.
When you look at as a Notre Dame fan, I've been saying it kind of all year. I was like, I don't know about this defense. I think that we always just think historically Notre Dame has a very good defense. This year, something was just overall off. And I think from what you saw in the back-to-back championship years, they had so much depth at the short stick D-midi position.
Yeah, they did.
Buckner was up and down. He played really good. He played really bad. Alak was in and out. Ben Ramsey,
yeah.
Even to a degree, a down year. A spark plug at times, but a down year.
Yeah.
And then Donovan's going to be Donovan. Sean Light, Schertzberger kind of got like a little bit owned yesterday by Traynor. So like, it just didn't seem it. And then, like we said, Richard Deli, a steady hand for them all year. 75% in the first half. I'm not blaming all those goals on him.
No, but
one save in the second half. If I showed you the first half tape and I'm like, they're going to lose this game because he has one save in the second half, I'd be like, that was the most shocking part for me.
Yeah.
When Notre Dame got to 12, I was like, I'm safe. They have a 6-goal lead. Richard Deli's not going to implode. Imploded a little bit.
Yeah,
the defense imploded. Like, that was the most uncharacteristic thing I think I saw.
And Notre Dame was really only impressive and really played to their best twice this year. The Michigan game when they went on the road and blew out Michigan, very impressive. And then the Ohio State game. Besides that, they really had the same problems week in, week out, and they just couldn't seem to overcome it.
And Kev, for you, I knew you had some concerns about the Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, I can't believe that Doogs isn't holding them more accountable, man. I mean, in what world is 12 goals enough to win a quarterfinal match? It wasn't enough for Richmond to beat Cornell. 18 wasn't enough for Princeton to beat Syracuse. The fact that you thought 12 goals would win it tells me that probably wasn't the defense's fault. You have all the faith in the world in the defense. You can't go 20 minutes without scoring a goal against a zone defense. That's not a championship caliber offense. Notre Dame just didn't have one this year. Look, it's not just one guy. Jake Taylor, you mentioned it, didn't run the ball out with 4 minutes left. Boozenkill misses a 1v1 with the goalie. Maharis misses a 1v1 with the goalie. And then Chris Cavanaugh has 2 shots in the final minute, and he can't bury either one. To me, honestly, if I look at Notre Dame and I look at it the whole, I see the droughts against UNC, Syracuse, Virginia, Penn, and now this game. I think the offense was not on the level that it's been the last few years. The defensive drop-off was not anywhere near as precipitous.
I think we forget, too,
I mean, if we're going by the numbers, too, numbers never lie. Offensive-wise, Notre Dame was ranked 6th, and defense, they were 26th. Last year, they were the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense.
Yeah, I just think those last 2 years of Notre Dame, I think we're just not overrating this Notre Dame team this year, but our expectations are just too high based on the last 2 years. Like, you got to think about, we're criticizing, Richard Deli was great down the stretch. He had a bad second half, but he's had a good couple games. But think about how many games Liam Entum in these last couple of years has saved Notre Dame. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, won you games on saves.
Yeah.
Pat, all those guys. Like, I think we're just this Notre Dame team, we're just all week, like all year, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And it's just at the end of the day, they just didn't have enough talent and enough depth and players to do it. And that's not a knock on this Notre Dame team. That's just a knock on, or just comparing them to how good that they've been. So it was unrealistic expectations, and we just thought they were going to do it.
Kev, for you, not being the biggest fan of the Notre Dame offense this year, but then hearing the numbers from Doogs, like, how does that make you feel?
What were they, Doogs? Was it efficiency?
Yeah.
Or overall?
Efficiency.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the overall numbers, and I know they didn't get blown out in a lot of games in terms of on the defensive end. I don't think 12 goals is enough to win you a quarterfinal game. You can't go into a quarterfinal game, score 12 goals, and expect to win.
I completely agree.
I mean, I bet you if you look at the Notre Dame, and I tried to go by it like loosely, but I mean, they probably only lost 5 games or less since 2021 when you scored double-digit goals. And I know they don't have Entman back there, but even this year, the games they've lost, like Syracuse kind of put it up on them.
Yeah.
And they probably got like 14 plus. So did I think that was going to happen against Penn State? No. Penn State went out and won that game. I do think it's more on the defense than it is on the offense. So I don't know. It wasn't like they were playing Princeton. It was like it's totally different matchups. Yeah. Notre Dame also has a style of play that's not run and gun. It's get to 12, we win. So like that's what you expect when you watch Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's
So
just a
would
tough
you
way.
define it as a comeback or a collapse? Which was it?
It's a collapse, 100%.
I mean, I'm gonna give Penn State their credit. I'm not gonna
Penn
say
State
that like
deserves the credit.
yeah.
But
You think it's comeback?
Dude, I mean, it was. You're watching it, and like, I'm not like taking away anything. I'm not going to take away anything from Penn State. Like Matt Traynor was unbelievable yesterday.
Yeah.
Frassione didn't even have a good game by any means, and like, that's when it was. Again, I think it was just outcoached. Like the adjustments that were made in the fourth quarter to go to the zone, or whenever they decided to go to the zone, Corrigan just had no personnel adjustments to try to be like, let's figure this out somehow. Let's throw, like, he made an adjustment earlier in the Syracuse game to put in Luke Miller, who I thought was a great addition to that lineup. And I thought if they went on a run in May, that was going to be a huge spark plug for them. So I think Corrigan got outcoached. I think the defense kind of fell apart, and I think that Penn State's offense deserves all the credit.
I mean, look, give Tambroni his flowers, too. I mean,
right.
what
Like,
that guy's done, 3 Final Fours in 6 seasons at Penn
Crazy.
State. Unbelievable what he's done. He's done it the right way. He's done it with, recruiting his guys. He's had a couple sprinkles of portal guys, but a lot of their main players, they are homegrown recruits, guys like Traynor, even the older Traynor,
PA guys.
all those guys. So, I mean, what Tambroni's done.
But Kev, what do you think? What was I gonna ask for Penn State? What did you think about Sean Light not being on Matt Traynor?
I thought that was. I'll agree with you there. I think that they definitely should have put Sean Light on Matt Traynor because Schweitzenberg and Will Donovan towards the end could not cover him. I said it on the live before. I thought that Sean Light had to be on Matt Traynor. The fact that they never made the adjustment, the fact that they never made an adjustment to the offense either, Doogs, is correct. I thought that Corrigan at the end was outcoached. Those are 2 very glaring changes that probably should have been made in game that weren't.
The thing that I found.
I do also. Sorry, Kogi. I don't want to
you're
interrupt
good.
you.
No, go.
I tend to do that on this lacrosse podcast a little bit.
No, you're good.
But no, I completely agree. And also, like, I was talking to Jordy yesterday, and just he has to,
rats.
Philly, just a couple Nestler's in there, a little bit in the mix. Don't blame the goalie, Dukes. All right, Ness, shut the hell up. Shut the hell up, you dweeb. No, but he was talking about like Kyle Lehman would have went off instead of Matt Traynor if you put Sean Light in him. I'm not going to say that Lehman wouldn't have went for more than 3. I know he had some mismatches there, but Sean Light for the most part held his own when they were matched up on each other.
Yep.
But I mean, I just cannot see a world where if you put Sean Light on Matt Traynor, that Matt Traynor, you're not gonna stop him. He gets 2-1, 3-0. But I can't see Kyle Lehman having the day that Matt Traynor had if Schwarzenberg's on him.
You know what I found interesting too? I don't know if any of you guys caught this after the game, but Tambroni was asked about that, and he said that they game planned this week expecting Sean Light to not be on Matt Traynor.
No, that makes sense.
So they game planned on that
because again, Lehman is the guy that initiates the offense. Like you do. I know why Notre Dame did what they did.
Yeah.
Like you're like, look, like we're not going to be scared of a matchup. We're going to stick to what we do. We're going to put Sean Light on the guy that's initiating the offense, get them uncomfortable. Which for a while.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even necessarily here's the crazy gosh darn part of what I'm going to say. I don't even know after Penn State put up 14 goals, they went on that 8-0 run in the second half. I wouldn't even necessarily say that the offense played that well. I'd say Matt Traynor literally took over again.
That was the best ball Penn State that we saw from.
Does that make sense at all? What I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like the
100%.
ball was whipping around.
Oh,
like
100%.
It was like Matt Traynor just
Taking over.
Took over.
Took over. TLM Player of the Week for a reason. The air gate goal. Do we think Gary Gate was like, damn?
If he was watching it, he might have been digging into film.
Yeah.
He might have been. I don't know
What's
if they're
going
watching
through
the other
Gary
game.
Gates' head when he's
He might have saw it on TLN,
Joe
but that's
Spallina
it.
broke his TV. He's like, gosh darn it, I thought Joey was going to be TLN Player of the Week.
Kev, me and you've been kind of saying it for a while. Like I said earlier in the year, I think this is Penn State's year. You've been saying as well. Are they the team of destiny headed into championship weekend?
Dude, I think they are now, and it's weird because I got Cornell winning my bracket, and now they're meeting rematch. Penn State, only team that's beaten Cornell. I got this battle of my takes. We've said it before. I hate when my takes go up against each other. And I'm Cornell ride or die, but I got to admit, Penn State is a team of destiny. Jack Frassione can still make clutch saves. Matt Traynor can take over a game by himself. I think that supporting cast, Doogs, is underrated. Ethan Long, Kyle Lehman, and Alex Ross on defense all making plays. But the biggest thing, as Hoagie pointed out, is Tambroni. I think he's done a great job coaching. He's a great leader. This team never gives up, which is the most important thing, I think, in tournament time. We saw when they were down against Cornell. We saw when they were down against Notre Dame. They come back. You think about where this Penn State team has been. 2019, number 1 seed, bounced from the tournament in the semifinals. 2020, okay, Grant Eamon senior year. This is the year. Oh, COVID, sorry. You get back there a couple years later. Oh, sorry, Garrett Ledman in the crease, doesn't get called. This team has been pushed down, and they always get back up. And that's why I think they're the team of destiny.
This was the Penn State team, too, that I was expecting to see all year long and that we didn't see. That team from 5 minutes in the third to the rest of the game, the energy, the juice, the passion. Matt Traynor just completely taking over that game. That was the Penn State that I was waiting to see in so many of these big games that we really never saw. And yeah, Penn State to me is giving Team of Destiny vibes. I mean, let's be real. This game this weekend and the Cornell game, 2 of the craziest finishes in those 2 games ever. Probably if you ran that on a computer 100 times, it's probably 95% they lose those games, 5% they win those games. They won both. That tells me this team, some juju's in the air with Penn State. I wouldn't be surprised if they won it all.
So I'm curious, do you guys think that was the best game? I think that was the 3rd best game of the weekend.
Yeah, but I don't even remember.
Really?
I don't remember seeing a comeback like that. When was the
when
last
you're
time there was
talking
a
about
comeback like
start
that?
to finish for me, like man, like the Saturday owned it, but like Harvard the collapse last week, like I think that was a more dramatic comeback and like collapse, whatever you want to argue there. Notre Dame being back to back obviously adds a factor to it.
Yep.
I do want to say Matt Traynor. I said it on an episode earlier in the year. I always think I'm a huge Notre Dame guy, but Matt Traynor is my favorite player in the country to watch. So like that was like one of those things where I'm like, gosh damn it, like this is gonna. You just saw this kid that you like.
And I think still we've been talking about it so much. I've said it a bunch. Like
I'm going off that.
Okay.
I don't think there's a world where they can win it. I think there's one matchup that they can possibly win. I think that it's only if Syracuse plays Penn State in the championship. I think Maryland's would beat them, and I do think Cornell is. And that's as a guy that really wants Penn State to win.
Reed Gills for Penn State's been great, and he can be a weapon for them moving forward.
Awesome.
Awesome. Because Colby Baldwin was good before his injury, and then he goes in, you have a freshman come in. I know he's a stud, a great, highly recruit, but, you're a freshman. You don't expect him to do it. He went 80% against Maryland in the Big Ten semifinals, 75% against Colgate last week, was great again this week. I don't know what the numbers were. I think he was technically under 50%, but still, if you're watching that game, he's going to be he's an X factor for them moving forward that can really help them.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll get into that game a little bit later, but let's go next game. The Syracuse Princeton game. I mean, you said it earlier in the episode, earlier this year in season 2. Syracuse is not back until they make championship weekend.
Yeah, they're not.
And we're here.
They're back. Syracuse
is back.
And look,
it's cool to say.
No, it is cool to say. And a lot of people, I've been hard on Syracuse, but that's the standard of Syracuse lacrosse. They're held to a different standard than other schools. And,
What's that standard?
National championships.
Okay, so are they back?
I think.
Are they back, or did they just get?
I don't think you can say national. You can say Maryland national championship.
Let's be real.
Cuse, I would say Final Four.
Yeah, Final Four for them since they haven't been back.
Yeah.
I'm saying they're back. Listen, Joey after the game said, "Hey, there's a standard at Syracuse where we didn't do anything unless we win a championship." And then you have Kark on the broadcast. Cotter goes, "All right, next game up here, we got Princeton and Syracuse. See if Syracuse can be back." And Kark's like, "Look, there's a different standard in upstate New York. Cuse can't be back until they make championship weekend.
Yeah.
It can't be said, no matter what." Mm-hmm. So they did it. They're back. I'm so happy for those guys. You could see, the emotion on all those players' faces, like almost like the weight had been lifted off their shoulders. And Joey gets a lot of hate. A lot of people, the burners go after him and so on and so forth. And all he's done is won since he's been there.
Yes.
Like he's come in. All the pressure on the world.
His whole life.
22 jersey. Yeah. All the pressure. Everyone always wants to go at him no matter how well. He could have the best game ever. They still chirp him, or the worst game and they chirp him. All he does is win. And in the biggest game, in the biggest moment that Syracuse has arguably had in a decade, to go to championship weekend on Hofstra, the field that he was playing lacrosse in on diapers and grew up. That was his backyard growing up. To have 8 points.
Doesn't count.
Let's just put this into perspective.
Doesn't count.
Why not?
The 8 points cannot count.
Why?
Kev, why? Why?
It was a homecoming game for Joey Spallina.
But listen, though.
And Kev, I want to kind of stick with you with that. Do you think Joey Spallina should have been a Tewaaraton finalist?
Yeah, and if you saw my tweet a couple weeks ago, you know this. If you follow me on Twitter, I think Joey Spallina should have been a Tewaaraton finalist, and I think he's got a case over everybody other than C.J. Kirst to at least be a finalist. Jackson Eicher, his season ended 3 weeks ago. Sam King, Spallina beat him head-to-head in the first round. Coulter Mackesy, Spallina beat him head-to-head in the second round. And he had the game-winning assist in both of those games. Chris Kavanaugh, good season, but his offense went ice cold in the quarterfinals. Spallina went 2-0 against them this year, won the ACC, led the conference in points, and they dropped 8 points in the quarterfinals 4 of which were unassisted goals against Colin Mulshine, who just got called up to the PLL. I think Joey Spallina silenced every last hater. Should have been a Thornton finalist. I know at this point, it's just an invitation to watch CJ receive the award. But I think Spallina should be there.
His interview was so sick, too, after the game. Where he's like, I guess I can't dodge, though, right, guys? Like, it's so sick.
Okay, I'm going to say, all right, I got it. All right, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. One, I think he should 100% should have been in over Coulter McEneaney. I think if there's one odd man out of this, it should have always been Coulter McEneaney.
Do you agree? Or do you think it's someone else?
I'm not singling anyone out.
If he's going to say Chris Kavanaugh has more points in less games and less turnovers in less games.
Doesn't have more points.
63 to 62 and 3 less games. 17 games played by Coulter McEneaney, 14 by Chris Kavanaugh.
Are you saying Joey Spallina? I think Joey Spallina has like 88 points.
No, I'm saying Coulter to Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm saying Coulter doesn't. I didn't think deserve to be in it this year. But going off that, Joey was like the whole I guess I can't dodge thing. I think he just uses his body well. Like I'm not saying like I still don't think Joey. I don't want you to blow past people. I don't want you to get outside.
Not his style.
It's not your style.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to think that you're any better because like he did get by his defender on a couple of the plays. But Joey, like I still don't think that you're like going to blow past every defender that's in front of you. And nor do I want you to.
Yeah.
Nor do I want you to because that's going to get you outside of your game.
I think one of the most things I'm surprised about, filming with him on the YouTube channel, watching his high school stuff, I was worried, like, can he do that against some of these ACC Big Ten defenders?
Yeah.
He's shown time and time again that he can get to that island. He can do it all. And to Kev's point, like he should be within those top 5 guys
100%.
as a finalist.
I mean, listen, all the guys everyone wants to chirp him online, and that was like kind of the moment on the interview where Joey was like, you know what, like take that, like look where I am, like keep talking. I mean, Joey, he's probably when he's done after next year going to be the all-time leading point scorer in Syracuse history. Yep. Brought them back to championship weekend for the first time in over a decade. Okay. What else? Oh, he's 2 or 3 points away right now, I think, from having 90 points on the season, which only 3 Syracuse lacrosse players have done in the history of the program. I mean, this is like
I've said this like in
type
episode
stuff.
1 or 2. This guy, when he's dead, and I hope this is in 100 years, will go down as a guy that scored the most points in a lacrosse lifetime.
With the expectation, too.
He's got the Long Island record, I think, of like 501.
Yeah.
He's going to probably have it at CUSE. What he's going to do in the PLL, like, it's just it's crazy how much he can do it at each level. That's what I'm so surprised about. But let's go back to the Tewaaraton aspect. I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you think Joey should be in? If so, who are you taking out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in hindsight, Joey should have been in. I think he should have been in. I think of the finalists, I'd probably have him in over Eicher or McEneaney just because I feel like winning goes a long way. Yeah. I think, Spallina deserves to be in there. His points speak for itself.
Yep.
Right? Obviously, CJ's going to win the award.
Yeah.
I do think Chris should be in just because of the winning aspect, and I think it matters what he's done the last couple of years leading that team. I think Coulter McEneaney, I agree, probably is the odd man out.
Yeah.
I just felt like Coulter, especially in this weekend's game, he kind of didn't have his best stuff. Like Chad Palumbo was really running that offense for Princeton to a degree. They kind of kept McEneaney in check.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That game was crazy. I mean, talking the actual game, I felt like whoever had the ball last was going to win that game. Yeah.
And Doogs, I want to pose this to you.
Sorry, I know you're the host.
Yeah.
I got to ask this. That would have been way worse. That would have been worse. That would have been a collapse.
That would have been a collapse.
Who? What?
By Syracuse.
No. But the reason with that game, though, is like Notre Dame goes up 12-6 in that game. You're like 12-6 playing Penn State, Notre Dame, like that style, their pace and stuff, that seems like insurmountable. Like Clark said on the broadcast, a 5-6 goal lead in that game was as good as a 1-goal lead.
How much time? I was doing my drinking on Saturday, watching the game.
It was a 4-goal game at the end. It was 16-12 at the end of the third. So it was a 4-goal game heading into the fourth.
Okay.
And those are both offenses that go on crazy runs. Like Penn State was just like dead, stagnant in the water.
Yeah, I think that's why in my head it was more of a I refuse to say with a microphone in my face that like Notre Dame collapsed and that Penn State didn't win that game.
I think it was a mix of both in that game. It was a mix of both in that game.
I will not do it. I'm not going to be a Penn State hater, even though I just said there's no way.
There's no Penn State hate on that.
Yeah.
It just, I think, it was a great run by Penn State, but somewhat of a collapse too, because if you actually watch that game, until that 5-minute mark, Penn State really couldn't get anything going, and everything was going right for Notre Dame.
I mean, I just cannot believe. Also, I love Richard Deli, but I just cannot believe that people are like tweeting at me like it's not his fault. I'm not saying it's his fault. One save, if your goalie gets one save and a half, you are not going to win that game most of the time.
Why did Notre Dame lose?
One insurance goal somewhere.
Yeah, but like you could make the argument that Devin McClain gave you that insurance goal to go up 6. Like your defense fell apart, Kev. You're Notre Dame. You have got to rely on your defense.
But the offense also
I think the defense is getting way too off the hook.
Kevin, do you agree the reason Notre Dame lost was because of their defense?
I thought we moved on to the Syracuse Princeton.
No, but I want to go back because Duke's so passionate. Do you agree?
I actually do agree. I think that it's more of a Penn State comeback. I think it was all Matt Traynor, really. Like,
so you're
when
trying
he
to
had
pigeonhole me,
super.
Kev?
No. Yes, I agree, but the Notre Dame offense still has to be held accountable for just completely fading away for 20 minutes in that game.
Yeah,
when it was
I'm holding Notre
the
Dame's
whole
offense
time.
accountable. That's how they could have stopped the comeback. I'm not saying if we're doing a 50-50 split, it's not. I think it's more comeback than it is collapse. But you can't have a comeback without a collapse. It's flip sides of the same coin. But, you know, I think they should have found a way to score. I think once Matt Traynor scored the Superman goal, Penn State started believing, and it was like, oh no, like you could see where the game was going.
I just don't. I don't think I like the drought thing. I understand it, and I understand where everyone's coming from. But it's like in my head, it's like, okay, if Notre Dame got eight goals, and then all of a sudden it's like every every 4 minutes you score one. It's like, all right, well, they didn't go through a drought, but they got 11 goals.
Dukes,
like,
they didn't score a goal for 20 minutes in a quarterfinal game, up 6 goals.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. You were just waiting to get your word in. What I'm saying is, like, if you get to 12, or 12 is your goal or whatever, like, why does the drought matter? Like, if they didn't go through any drought, they didn't go through a 20-minute drought. The drought doesn't exist, but they got 11 goals. Would that matter more? Would that be like, well, Notre Dame's defense blew them that game? The drought makes no sense to me. It's like if you get a certain amount of possessions and you get 12 goals,
I agree with Kev.
Who cares how you get it?
12 goals is not cutting it in today's college lacrosse.
It's also not the same.
Comfortable.
It's not the same. You don't score 12 goals in the first quarter, and then the rest of the game you don't have to score. There's game flow. There's momentum, and that stuff shifts. And I think there is a scenario, Doogs, that maybe if they got to 12 trading goals. Yeah, maybe they win that game. But the fact of the matter is there was an 8-0 stretch in that game. And if you're just able to break up that 8-goal run once, twice, just give them that knife to let them know that you're not dead. That they never did it. They never did it.
Yeah, I think for a program like Notre Dame, what they're built on, that does fall on the defense. And I think it's been their Achilles heel the whole year.
I just think the offense all year has gone 20 minutes scoreless, and in today's college lacrosse world, where you gotta let's be real, offenses win games nowadays, right? Like you gotta score to win. So you can't rely on the old days when you could score 11, 12 goals and win games. I'm not saying the defense isn't to blame, but I think it's partially on both sides. The defense, they needed to be better in that 20-minute stretch, but it's a lot to ask the defense to say, hey, guys, go 20. We're done scoring for the day. Just hold them for 20 minutes. Yeah. That's a lot of time in a game to say a quarter and a half to have your defense, all that pressure to be like, oh, we can't let any more goals up. You got to have at least one or two goals.
I mean, Notre Dame this year has had a team score more than 12 goals on them 3 times, lost every single game. Every other game they won.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a lot to ask that defense to say, hey, guys, it's a quarterfinal game, NCAA tournament. 5 minutes left in the third. We're not going to score again. You got to hold them scoreless for 20 minutes. I mean, you got to be able to get 1 goal, maybe 2 goals in 20 minutes if you're an offense. If you really want to,
it's not the 12. It's the 20 minutes.
You can't go 20 minutes scoreless, Mitch.
Yeah. And I think Kev's saying if you kind of go back and forth, you get to 12
I took a game
maybe?
theory class. I heard that momentum is fake. I heard it one time. I'm going with that.
Okay, well, that's where we're going to move on. Cornell over Richmond. We kind of saw glimpses of this earlier in the year. Yeah. I thought it would be potentially different. But let's just clap it up for Richmond on the season.
What a season. What a season.
Sick. It's cool. I don't know if Kev or Dukes or V said it, I think last episode. That could potentially be a blue blood down the road. That has a spot, the campus, the atmosphere. Shout out to all the people from Virginia. Virginia's for lovers.
When's the doc coming, Mitch?
Yeah, next fall.
Yes, sir.
You'll be down there with Coach Tillman.
It'll be sick to be down there. But what impressed you the most about Cornell?
About Cornell?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I'm going to give, Dan Chamati and Richmond had an amazing plan, I think, right off the bat. I think, Richmond wasn't fully funded as a program until last year, which is crazy, the amount of wins that they have. I mean, they've beaten Duke, they've beaten Notre Dame, they've beaten UNC multiple times, Virginia multiple times. So I think Coach Tamati and those guys, they believed, and they came out, and they played about as good of a game, I think, as they could. Yep. I just think, Cornell just has, in the end of the day, they just have too much talent that they're just going to keep kicking down the door. I mean, Cornell shot 2 for 17 in that first quarter, and if you really watch the game at the beginning, I was kind of just like, all right, if these shots start to fall, like, Cornell just has too much. Yeah. But Richmond just kept fighting and punching and punching. The difference for me was the Cornell ride. I thought was unbelievable,
CJ,
especially in the second half.
Kev,
CJ and those
guys. You
guys.
posted it. I mean, he looks elite. And that's what I continue to say. Like, if you're going to be a dominant offensive player that is going to continue to kill it at college and want to do it at the PLL, you got to have kind of that gritty ride back ground ball, the in between the lines plays it, and we obviously saw that with CJ.
Yeah, Ryan Goldstein too was unbelievable in that game. Yeah. Unbelievable. And for Cornell, I'm interested in how they play this weekend, just because I feel like the last 2 games they've been a little bit off their game. They haven't shot it as efficiently.
Cue you in here. The offensive efficiency. Do you think it needs to improve for them to conquer Penn State Saturday?
Yeah, I honestly think that Cornell needs to enter playoff mode. I don't know if they have yet. It's not just the offensive efficiency, too. It's the defensive efficiency. Wyatt Nuss only made 5 saves. Yeah, I don't think they can count on shooting the ball 50 times, only put 50% of them on net, go 0 for on man up, and just be like, CJ will win the game for us at some point. I like when they get in a close game like that, tough defense where they have to give CJ the ball and they're letting him dodge and work like that. It's fun to watch because he's a great dodger, but it wasn't working for a lot of the game. I mean, he got the one dodge from X where he made it in front of the net, dive score. He had another one from up top where he knocked his man down, found Goldstein on the crease. Those were great. But it really wasn't until late in the fourth quarter, I think about 6 minutes left with the goal that tied it up, was like an off-ball look where Michael Long comes down, bangs it to Goldstein. Goldstein comes right back up on the crease, and Curse finishes it. I need to see more of those plays, those set plays where they're getting Curse the ball off ball for looks to get shots on the crease or on the backside, something like that. Because to me, it just looked like, we're going to get endless possessions. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting the best shot. Wyatt Nuss, make a save whenever you can, I guess. But we'll beat Richmond, no doubt. It was a lot closer than maybe they thought. And I think they need to enter playoff mode, get more efficient on both ends of the field.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I just think, too, though, it was very impressive how Cornell was able to kind of handle that and win that game in a multitude of different ways, especially, Wyatt Nuss did not have the best game, and Kirst ended up with 2-2, but he was essentially for a good part of that game, like really not involved as much as he would have liked. I mean, his patented dodge, Richmond was all over it. Yep. So they had to find different ways to win. They had to find rides. They had to find, creating transition. They had 2 pole goals at one point in the third quarter in consecutive goals. So for them to kind of find ways to win and stay in the game when they didn't have their best from some of their best is impressive, and that's like one of the things that great teams have, right? Is when they're not on their game, still finding ways and different ways to win and keep going. So,
100%. Dukes, Cornell impress you?
They had 2 Garden City kids. I mean,
GCG.
Did you see that?
GCG.
Did you hear that on the broadcast?
GCG.
I mean, dude,
I really to a GCG game in a while.
Dude, Woodstick just happened. I don't even know who won that, actually. Probably Garden City. Unbelievable. I'll be at the Hofstra games. I'll be back.
He'll be back.
Here in the PA announcer. I do got to say, though, I think Brendan Staub, the GCG, the pole goal kid, I think he made some very underrated winning plays for Cornell, like diving for loose balls, giving them extra 50-50 possessions, and even like Richmond, just like sloppy play. I know the ride and everything from Cornell was unbelievable, but just some sloppy turnovers in that game. And I think Cascadin at the faceoff is just a beast. I wonder your take. I was watching him, and I've always known he's a beast athletically growing up. He seems like the perfect PLL face-off guy. Just someone that can stay on the field offensively. Yeah. Just big athlete. What do you think about that?
No, I love his game. I think he's got elite hands. He's got quick hands. I think if I'm going to critique one part that I think he really needs to, moving forward, is, sometimes I think he struggles either picking up the ball or kind of clearing it. In some aspects, he's not as clean. Like one of my favorite in the country watch is like Will Lynch. Yeah. He picks up every tough ground ball. So that's just one aspect I would say is like him kind of picking up that ball clean and really getting it down. Like every time Will Lynch can have 2 guys on him lifting his butt end and he gets low, picks it up, throws it to the goalie. It's effortless. So
last comment on Notre Dame for the season. Will Lynch bulldozing that guy to get him offsides was the coolest play of the year that will not be talked about anymore. It was so funny.
It's one of those that just gets lost.
It just gets lost. But that was so funny.
Yeah.
I promise I'll post it. I promise I'll post it this week.
I feel bad for Will Lynch, though. He got picked up by the Archers, and, like, he's not going to get a real shot to make a roster with Sis, unfortunately. I wish he would have got on a different team where he could have had maybe a chance.
Yeah, but you kind of show yourself off in those scrimmages at training camp.
Yeah, and the other coaches see you. Like, he'll definitely be on a roster, I think.
Dude.
Last game. Death, taxes,
Maryland Final Four. I mean,
Four.
we said we write it in with Sharpie.
It's pretty crazy. Like, it's actually historic, kind of what we're witnessing out of Dr. Tillman.
I will say, you know, every team, if you go on their schedule at the beginning of the year in like February, they'll have like the first round, second round, Final Four like on their schedule. Basically every team. Like Maryland, it's like actually like they're playing. Like you can like book your hotel if you're a parent. You can like make sure we get the food service. What are we getting for the tailgate? Oh, it's in Boston. All right, we need to find a new caterer this year. All right, let's get. Oh, same time next year. We'll see it. Like that's how it is.
You don't plan anything until like June 1st.
I'm trying to work something into this. All right, I'm not sure if I believe it yet. I'm going to workshop a take right now.
Okay.
Michigan State college basketball. I'm trying to think of something. You know, this is a team that historically always makes deep runs.
Yes.
Michigan State hasn't won a championship though since 2000. Now, when you look at what Maryland does year in, year out, they always make the Final Four. They always make a deep run. They don't always win the championship. And I saw a Maryland fan on Twitter yesterday bragging about how they're a dynasty. They're not. We're all in agreement they're not a dynasty, right?
You got to win like 3 and 5. But I will say, though, to all the people, I see it on Twitter, too. People, 2-8 in the championship. I don't want to hear that because they're in the championship every year. No other program is as consistent or even coming close to that. So if you're chirping them for going 2-8 in the championship when you've made the championship 1 time or 2 times in a decade, I don't want to hear it from anyone.
So you're a LeBron guy too.
What?
You like LeBron over Jordan?
I mean,
no, I'm with you. I do want to say
I get it. Tillman, his only knock on Tillman is that he's 2-8 in championship games. But at the end of the day, it's like no one else has even gotten to 8 championship games. He's been the coach at Maryland for 14 years and made 11 championship weekends. I mean, he's got more championship weekends than Blue Bloods have tournament appearances since 2000. I mean, it's insane.
Doogs, I want to pose you this question. Let's say Tillman ends his career going to 10 national championships. Let's say he goes 3-10. Do you put him as a better coach than Tierney?
Yeah, I'd say he's a better coach than Seth Tierney.
No.
I will say though, the landscape is way more competitive in today's lacrosse than it was when.
I want to hear your opinion. What do you think,
dude? I firmly think that if Tillman gets if he gets to 4, and he's just doing this every year, I don't care if he loses in championships. You do have to get more than what he has. You get to 4, and I'm starting to think.
I think Tills is going to get like 4 or 5. Dude, he's going to be.
Can I actually say?
How many more years is he?
Yeah, he's got a lot of years left in. Was leading my point there, man.
I would say, I think just get to 4, and I'm going to be like, no, you're the GOAT in my book.
So many
but if
years.
he doesn't get to 5, I think it's the biggest disappointment ever. Dude, do you not
Kevin, please talk.
Can I say one thing? In the next 10 years, how many Final Fours do you expect from Tillman if he comes?
If
he stays?
8 out of 10. 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10?
Final Fours.
He's missed the 5. He's 11-1 in quarterfinals.
I would say 6.
Okay,
6 out of 10.
Can I tell you what I expect from Tillman at this point? I expect him to go to 9 Final Fours. That's how good he is, and I think he could get 3 in 9 years. It's not that crazy what I said when you really break it down from how high of expectations I have for him.
The craziest thing is I'm John Tillman. I'm recruiting you, Mitch, from Riverside. Come on a visit.
Best high school in America.
Mitch, you're Riverside. I loved your film. Come on a visit to Maryland. I'll take you around.
I'm here, Coach. What's going on?
See the field, locker room, all the facilities, right? All right, you've done the whole tour. All right, Mitch, let's go talk in my office. Mom, Dad in there.
Yeah.
Hey, Mitch, I want to offer you a scholarship to University of Maryland, right? You get an offer on the spot.
Yeah.
John Tillman can look you in the eyes, Mitch, and genuinely look at you and say, if you come here for 4 years, I can guarantee you'll play in 3 or 4 or 5, 3 championship weekends in your 4 years. He can literally guarantee you that. You are guaranteed, Mitch.
That's crazy.
3 Final Fours, at least, maybe all 4.
It's like the viral Saban clip of some family went on a visit, and Saban was just like, we go to the championship every year. We got this many SEC championships. So it's just like, that's his resume. Yeah. And that's a selling point.
What was his recruiting pitch to you?
Didn't get recruited by Dr. Tillman.
Neither did I. This is BS.
No, yeah. But I got recruited by Petro, and it was something similar, though. I mean, with the Hopkins and the winning that they had, it was something similar, even though they didn't go to that many in that era. But at the same time, when you're a coach at that level, you don't need the facilities. You don't need it. You want guys that love lacrosse, that are lax rats, and want to play on a championship weekend. because that's what you're going to get going to Maryland.
And that's another one of the most impressive things with John Tillman.
Yeah.
Look, everyone knows Maryland has elite talent. They do. They get some of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
So to say that they don't have the elite talent is ridiculous. But what I mean is more like the cream of the crop that some of these teams have gotten. Like Maryland year in, year out doesn't get like that number one recruit or that crazy guy. They get amazing players, but they're not getting the, Joey Spallinas of the world right out of the gate in the recruiting realms. So what?
They never get like the one
The
guy.
one. You know what I
G1.
mean? The one. Like the generational.
Bernhardt was unbelievable.
He wasn't one,
He
though.
wasn't.
He was top 3 in my class.
No, they always get like the 2,
but
3,
you know
or
what I'm
4
saying,
or 5
Mitch.
guy.
Okay, so now if Ty Xanders, how he's like looking at a 15-year-old, where he's
No.
going to be like, all right, well, Ty Xanders said he's number 1. John Tillman, I'd like to see John Tillman's rankings.
What I mean
to
is
see who the real number 1 is.
Year in,
That's
year
true.
out, whether he has the 2022 Maryland team that's undefeated, that I think is the best lacrosse team I ever seen, with all the talent in the world, or the team last year that completely overachieved and made it all the way to the championship. Tillman has shown no matter if he has the really talented team or the team that doesn't have all the pieces or the team that can't figure it out, somehow they always end up in the same spot is the craziest thing.
And Kev, for you, Coach of the Year, Tillman or Tambroni?
Yeah. I mean, that's a travesty to me. We're listing all this off. 14 seasons, 11 Final Fours, 8 national championship appearances, 2 titles. He only has one, John Tillman, one USILA Coach of the Year award. I think that's crazy. And I think
Why do you think that is?
I think it's this exact thing that we're talking about with what the standards are. Like, we talk about Brescia and UNC and what the standards are there versus the standards at Maryland. And it's like, oh, Maryland, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, or rarely the bride, I guess, now. But to me, I feel like there's no credit that he gets for the job that he does. I think he should have won it last year. I thought his coaching job to get Maryland to the national championship was more impressive than Corrigan's job winning a back-to-back. No disrespect to Notre Dame. I just think that what Maryland did, no one expected them. No one even thought they should even be in the tournament. Didn't think they had the resume, and then they go on a run to the national championship. Look, this year, I think Tillman's got to win it. The only one you could say has a case against him is Tambroni, but Tillman's 2-0 against him, I think, so far this year, so that should factor into it. If you look at the other 2 guys, Busick for Cornell, I could probably coach Cornell to the Final Four with CJ Kurst. And Gary Gate, he came into the season. This was supposed to be Syracuse's year. They had the loaded class. It's finally they're coming of age. I don't think it's Gary Gate either, especially when you talk Syracuse, what the standard is there. I think that John Tillman should be the Coach of the Year this year.
Whoa. I thought it was like a no-doubter Busick.
Well, I feel like sometimes it's automatically the number 1 team, and a lot of times it's like, all right, we're going to go with him. Busick's done a great job, but
just like what he's been able. I know it's like it's.
it's a
Cornell,
huge
Cornell's
advantage.
not just you got CJ Kurst. I completely agree to that. But you also do. There's part of coaching where you have to like manage expectations from these players.
I agree.
You have to manage even just the fact that you have 2 90+ point players in Goldstein, and you have Kurst, but then you have a guy Michael Long.
Yeah.
Who's been a 4-year starter, I want to say, or like he's on. But no, I know, but you have to manage also his being like, hey, we have Goldstein right now. Like he might like have to be like a bigger break.
But I'll be honest though, like that was when I was there in the fall. I did the full documentary on those guys. That was the biggest takeaway I had about that Cornell team. No one cared. They were just so tight. They all wanted to win. There was no
but I think
ego
it goes
or
into
anything
coaching.
like that.
Yeah, I think that goes to coaching.
I think it goes into the breed of players there. You look at look at Adler. Those guys are so humble. They just want to win. And it's not like some of these other programs where guys want to get theirs.
Yeah, and the job he's done too
what programs are those?
Keep going, V.
But no, I'm saying the job that Busick's done though too. Let's be real. Obviously, Cornell has rich tradition and stuff. But before he got there, they kind of couldn't really get to that next level. And look about the last 5 years. We're talking about with CJ the freshman year getting there. They've had. I know they didn't make the tournament last year, but they've been on the up and up year in year out. Competitive, high-powered offenses. And like you said, the culture and program they have there. Look, it's Ithaca, New York. We've been there.
Yep.
There's not a lot up there, right? The guys have themselves. They go in that weight room. They wear that cotton T-shirt with the XL that has your size on it.
Teague.
It's so gritty. It's so gritty.
It's gritty. It was
One
awesome
last
being up
point
there.
I'll make about Maryland and the talent difference between Cornell and them. If we were to rank the top 10 players left in the tournament, how many would be Maryland players?
Probably 7 or 8 of them, probably. Oh, you're saying recruits or like on the
No,
field right now?
right now. Everyone in the tournament that's alive. Syracuse, Penn State.
Not that many.
Not that many.
You don't
Right.
think so?
Logan McEneaney might be the only one.
I think
right.
Spanos
So that's my
when he
point.
has good
Is I'm
day,
saying
yeah.
John Tillman is objectively doing the most with the least. I know
That's
Hoagie
what I
said it
mean.
a billion times, but
Yeah.
it's
But
obvious.
his ability to do it with the top talent, and again, we know that he gets talent. We're not saying Maryland doesn't have the talent because that's ridiculous to say that. But when you look at, relatively speaking, other teams that he competes with year in, year out, especially like this
But I
year.
don't even know if you can look at it from a talent perspective. Look
It's
at it
just-
last year, like Notre Dame, like they had the talent, they won it, they
Yeah.
did the job. He wins the award. Like
Maryland just year in, year out for me.
I just think that the standard for Maryland is like it's the standard, and no one takes that into effect.
Yeah, and it's the same every year. It's just like the guys just buying year after
Yeah.
year. And, put aside a couple of the years in 2022 where they had the electric offense
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Maryland plays this style, this slow. I want to call it almost like an anaconda. They like suffocate you. They don't
Yeah.
do anything crazy. They kind of lull you to
And
sleep.
it's boring.
And it's boring.
Yeah.
But they do everything right.
Maryland
They
ball.
pick up ground balls.
Well,
They
Hoagie.
win faceoffs. They clear. And eventually, at the end of the day, they just wrap their arms around your neck and they suffocate you. And that's it.
What do you think, Kev?
Hoagie, even that 2022 offense, that crazy offense.
Yeah.
How many of those guys are in the PLL?
Exactly. And that offense we call crazy compared to some of the other offense we've seen, even like a Cornell offense this year, doesn't even look close.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
What he's obviously done with that roster is nuts, and we're going to be excited to watch that in Boston live.
100%.
But now we have an interview with the legend, one of the most beautiful
Yeah.
voices in the sport of lacrosse, Eamon McEneaney. Let's go. And now, welcoming one of the most beautiful voices in the sport of lacrosse. Clap it up, Eamon McEneaney,
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. We haven't heard this luscious voice in a couple years. Eamon, how are we doing? It's good to have you on the Mitchell Pehlke Lacrosse Show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking lacrosse. But you guys did agree to the deal that we're not going to talk about the Notre Dame Penn State game, right? That was
That's
my
actually-
my one stipend for coming on.
It's actually first question. We'll dive right in. As an alumni yourself, walk us through on what you saw yesterday, Sunday.
Oh man, let's just say I've watched the final 5 minutes of the Orange Bowl a million times since then to get over it. Losing to Penn State in that fashion was tough. Blowing a 12-6 lead was tougher. I'm not going to lie. I didn't put it in the win column mentally, but I started envisioning Sean Light guarding CJ Kirst. I started envisioning how I was going to get up to Foxborough and back if it was a one-day trip, if I was going to get a hotel room, how Will Lynch would do against Cascadon. So I was starting to put it in the win column, but it's been a while since a game has flipped like that. We all know lacrosse is a game of runs, but at 12-6, Notre Dame was dominant. Penn State was doing nothing. And then, boy, Traynor took over, and it was a tough final 10 minutes for us Irish fans, no doubt about it. But Penn State took it to Notre Dame, and they definitely went out and grabbed that win.
Yeah, Traynor looked great. Penn State obviously took over. No three-peat. But what was it like for you watching the past 2 years of obviously the back-to-back?
It was amazing. I mean, those 2 weekends in Philadelphia, the Virginia game, because 24 was kind of easy or, kind of matter of fact. We kind of gloss over how hard 23 was. Virginia had that game won. So Liam Entenmann makes a save. I think it's a 2-goal lead. And then, to tie it and win it in overtime, that was a sick afternoon for a sports fan and definitely a Notre Dame alum. And then to come back and fittingly do it over Duke to finally win one. It was just an amazing experience as a fan, as an alum of the program. And then to do it all over again was 24. They knocked on the door so many times, came close so many times to finally kick it down. And the amazing thing was so many former players and their families came back. That Lot K, those 2 weekends is something I'll remember for a lifetime. So many former players getting to see each other for the first time. Simply was amazing. I don't want to say it was worth the wait because I wish they had gotten it done in 2010 and 2014 when they had their chances, but and came close. But it was awesome to see, and happy for Coach Corrigan and all those players to get the championship.
Walk us through calling some of the biggest college lacrosse games. For us, you were a big voice for our childhood. What was that like getting inside the booth?
It was awesome. Obviously, I've always wanted to be a sportscaster. My career wasn't really taking off for where I wanted it to be. And then all of a sudden, you had ESPNU and College Sports Network, which is now CBS Sports Network, come on the scene pretty much at the exact same time. And, let's be honest, no one really knew how to call lacrosse. Not no one. Obviously, Leif Elsmo and Dave Ryan were out there, Joe Beninati. But, there were so many more games that needed to be called. And, it opened the door for me. I was first the sideline reporter. Then they tried me as an analyst. And then I found my, niche as play-by-play. And, one thing led to another. I paid my dues, and I got to become sort of the lead guy. And, it was a dream come true. I got to call 5 national championship games for the sport that I played and, still have a passion for. So to have a front row seat for all those great games, and, that's the beauty of the ESPN schedule. You were calling the great games. It wasn't like, college football where there are 85 games on a Saturday afternoon. Lacrosse, there's like 2 or 3. So you're calling the game that everyone's watching, or at least you hope everyone's watching. So, one of the first games I called with Jack Emmer was Virginia Hopkins, when Hopkins had Rabel and Pizer. Virginia, I think, Virginia won it in overtime. And I'm like, this is sick. Well, can we do this every week? And, I got to do that, for almost 10 years.
That was Kev's era. He had a little flashback. I see him. But, Eamon, for myself, I did sideline for the Big Ten Championship. I'm getting in the booth a couple different times. Do you have any tips for me to how to continue to excel in that area?
I listened to you call a Michigan game with Dixon. I forget who they were playing, but, it was pretty easy. What I would tell you is be yourself, and you don't have a problem being that. Have fun. Obviously prepare.
Yep.
You got to know the teams. The easiest way to make sure everyone's watching is to make a mistake. I don't know if the Lax Power chat forum is back bashing the announcers, but it certainly was around in my day. I called it the Instant Focus Group. I guess we have that now on X. But,
yep.
Look, that is, not that Paul Carcaterra needed my advice at all, but one time when I was working with him, I said, look, no one knows this sport better than you, and no one knows these 2 teams better than you. So just let it rip and have fun. And that's all the lacrosse fan wants. The lacrosse fan wants to know that you care about it and that you know it. And obviously, I think you check both those boxes.
No, I appreciate that. Hoagie here is probably one of the biggest lax rats in this room. He's going to kind of walk us through memory lane a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Eamon, thanks first off for coming on. I know you were a staple for all of us growing up, especially me. I remember running home from my middle school lacrosse games to get back for the Old Spice College Lacrosse Saturdays, the Selector Spider days. I mean, that was memories I'll have forever. But Eamon, kind of walk us through what was your favorite venue you called games at, or some of the best venues that you called games at throughout your career for college lacrosse?
Yeah, I love the Dome, because where you call a game in the Dome is an awesome vantage point for an announcer. Plus, it's the Dome. They always get a good crowd. You don't have to worry about the weather. You're usually calling a good game. So I love the Dome. I love Klockner. Klockner, if it's warm, Klockner's amazing. They get a great crowd. I don't know how many guys have been to Virginia, but the way it's laid out is the baseball stadium's right behind it. And so it seems like the whole campus just comes out there. So when they get that overflow on the burn at Klockner is awesome. Obviously, I got to tell you, I love Arlotta, even though it's not a great press box, the way they built it, but it's still, I think, the way it's constructed for a stadium and the way that you get that overflow crowd, I got to love Arlotta, and Homewood's Homewood. I'm not going to go with Quint and say it's the Yankee Stadium of college lacrosse. Which, as a Yankee fan, I won't go there, but, it's a great place to call a game. Again, it's outdoors, so you don't like it in February when you're doing a Tuesday night game against Manhattan or Towson, but in May or late April when they're playing Maryland and the place is packed. I call the Maryland-Ohio State game. You talk about rushing home from middle school. I forget the exact year, but Maryland played Hopkins at Homewood, and they started at like 5 or 6. It was early evening because they wanted everyone, to be done with their youth games, the high school games, the other college games. And they both came back in throwback uniforms. They both made huge entrances out of the tunnel. I don't know how familiar you are with Homewood, but there's apartments across the street. There's a hotel across the street. There were literally people watching the game on their patios and terrace like Wrigley. And it's the first time, and really the only time, where I was calling a college lacrosse game where I felt like it was Michigan-Ohio State football. The place, and so Homewood is always a great place to call a game as well.
I just would like to interject. We're talking about the best places to call a game.
Yeah.
The most unique's got to be Maryland because you get to call that from a space station. So, I mean, you get to basically be up in a boat.
What are we, 10 minutes in and you're going to start having me bash College Park and upset all the
That's why we have them.
That's why we got them.
Everyone's got a role to play.
Yeah, it's a tough place to call a game, and it's a shame too because they get great crowds.
Yeah.
I've done a couple Hopkins game there, and you kind of walking up to the booth, you can tell that there's 10, 11,000 people there, and then you get up there on Jupiter and Mars, and you have no idea. And obviously, we all bash it on X when we're watching a game, and look, they're the best program. In the last 20 years. We've all marveled as he's back in another Final Four. What John Tillman's been able to establish there, 2 championships. The record in the quarterfinals is amazing. They get great crowds. They're a premier program. and then their games on TV, don't reflect that, and that's a shame because they have everything going for them, and it's a bummer. But that is not one of my favorite places to call a game.
Card said the same thing.
Yeah. No, 100%. What is your favorite game you've ever called? Bring us into the booth, the game, how it went, how it ended, and maybe you had one of your famous one-liners.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of candidates. Bryant stunning Syracuse in the Carrier Dome first-round upset.
Yep.
I called that one with Ryan Boyle. That was an incredible atmosphere, and the last 20 seconds of that game were unreal. The last game I ever called is North Carolina's championship over Maryland in overtime. Certainly a sick game, which, some unbelievable plays. But the favorite game for me to call, maybe I'm a little biased, but I think it's more than that, is Notre Dame-Albany quarterfinals.
Yeah.
I think it's
Wow.
2014 at Hofstra.
Yeah.
There was a juice in that stadium because of the Thompsons, because it was late afternoon. Obviously, Notre Dame brings it. Certainly in the New York area, you're going to get a ton of Notre Dame fans. I don't know what the exact attendance was, but it felt like it was packed. Notre Dame gets out to a big lead. You think they're going to roll, and then, boom, all of a sudden, Albany has complete control. There's one goal where it's like a 2-goal swing where Notre Dame takes a shot, hits the crossbar, and ricochets out and hits the D-midi in stride as if the most perfect outlet pass ever thrown. And he goes right down Hempstead Turnpike and scores. Yeah. And I say that's ball game. Yeah. And say Albany, the Great Danes, are running all the way to Baltimore. Coach Corrigan reminds me of that almost every time I see him. But, Notre Dame somehow flips the tables with the 10-man ride, gets it to overtime. And then Matt Cavanaugh ends it, and Matty has iced it for the Irish. Certainly one of my, to me personally, one of my favorite calls.
I think another one of my favorite that you called, Eamon, was the Notre Dame-Denver game at Arlotta when it was 1-2. And obviously Denver ended up winning that game in overtime, but that whole 4-goal swing in a row in 45 seconds that Notre Dame scored, your whole call of and Notre Dame has the lead. I'll never forget watching that game live. That's one of my favorite games that you've ever called.
Legendary.
Yeah, legendary.
That was a sick game. I forget what it was, 4 goals in 45 seconds or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It was sick. And then but give Denver credit. I think it's the same guy who beat Notre Dame in the semis the year before in overtime to score the same goal. So I said the champs will be number 1 on Monday or something like that.
Yeah, the champs will be number 1 on Monday.
I love that. Kev, let's jump to you real quick. The lacrosse landscape for media-wise has changed so much, and I kind of want you to explain on that.
Yeah, Eamon, I'm curious where you stand on this because every week from February until tournament time, when we get the big broadcasts, obviously, we've already bashed Big Ten Network for their broadcast, but there's so many streaming services and there's so many games that are, low quality streams. But for someone like me, I come from an era where not all these games were streamed. I couldn't watch every game. So I'm curious where you stand when you see that criticism and you think of the growth of the game and where things are today. Are you more of the mindset hey, we got to get these streams together, some of these are garbage? Or are you hey, just be thankful that we have them because 10 years ago we didn't?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between. I mean, it is not lost on me. On a Wednesday afternoon, I can watch Notre Dame, Cleveland State on my TV. My sons have to set it up for me, but I can do it. When for 20 years, Notre Dame was never on TV. I remember the first time I remember Notre Dame being on TV was the 2006. Obviously, that's not true. They made the Final Four in 2001. But 2006, they played the great Virginia team in the first round. And ESPNU wasn't in everyone's house back then, but my brother-in-law and my sister had DirecTV or something. So I, brought the beverages and they let me watch the game in their living room. So, it's not lost on me what we're able to do. Certainly, back to the Big Ten, if I was a Maryland fan, I'd be pretty bummed out. I paid for it. I've paid for it twice now. But, the Pat Cavanaugh 4 overtime game, if I'm a paying customer for that, you got to do a little bit better. If I'm getting it for free, you can put the camera wherever you want. I get it. If I'm watching the Northeast Conference stream for free, I'm not going to complain. But if I'm forking over $9 because I'm treating this like an Avengers movie, I'll expect a better stream. But that being said, the fact that you can watch almost every lacrosse game you want to is pretty impressive. Yeah, the streams need to get better. The games on TV, for the most part, are very good. So I think I'm somewhere in between. The thing that used to bother me the most when I was calling games at ESPN was this attitude, well, it's lacrosse, they should be lucky it's on TV. I'm like, come on, we can do a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
But, it's still an amazing amount of games that you can watch. And it's, still relatively, in this world where we're used to paying for 9 million streaming services, it's relatively inexpensive. So I think I'm kind of in between. I think the stream should get better, but at the same point, I think we should be pretty satisfied with how much lacrosse you can watch.
The Flow
Well,
Sports.
you're in a
for
unique
$30.
position to comment on this. I want to get your opinion on two other things that grind people's gears on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. One is the scheduling in terms of like how so many of the games are on at the same time. Do you think that's at all avoidable or fixable in the future? And then two, the tournament and the selection committee and the fact that only 8 teams are seeded and the rest of the seeds are determined, or first round matchups are determined based on geography. Do you think either of those problems will be fixed in the future?
No. Here's the problem. First of all, if you want to fix what your problem is, and it is a problem, first of all, you're asking you have to push the season back 2 weeks. Playing a month's worth of games in February, you're banging your head against the wall because you're never going to get on TV. The worst college basketball game you could think of is going to outrate Hopkins, Maryland. Okay, so that's just facts. So when you're playing a month of good games in in February, you're not going to get on TV. So if you're not on TV, the schools are all going to schedule the games by themselves, and everyone wants to play at noon or 1. Where if you notice, late in April, early May, when TV sort of takes over and starts showing interest, you get that 5 o'clock Friday night game. You get games spaced out because now all of a sudden you have open window spaces and you have to feed ESPNU, the ACC network, the Big Ten network, CBS, and maybe another network out there. But that's why you space it out. What you want to do is have Notre Dame be smart enough to say, hey, if we play Marquette at 3 o'clock on Saturday instead of 1, we'll have the whole streaming world to ourselves. No one's going to think like that. So we have to push the season back to create more windows. I want to push the season back to have more warm weather games, even though I know the spring is unpredictable. Because let's face it, if you play at like Holy Cross or Dartmouth and don't make your conference tournament, your season's over when it's finally nice out. And the tournament, I completely agree with you. It needs to be blown up. We need to go straight 1 through 16. I was on X with that as soon as it came out. I think it was. Now look, I totally get the the blowback that you're gonna have to beat a good team anyway. But for Ohio State to be the 4 and have a tougher game than the 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now again, they all ended up with tough games, so my argument loses some starch. But that's not fair. That's not right. If lacrosse was treated the same way, like if Stephen A. Smith cared about lacrosse, he'd be screaming about that. But instead, it's just me and us on X, and no one cares.
Yeah.
But I would like to get a world 1 through 16. I don't think we need to expand the tournament. I know a lot of people want to scream about Army. I don't think the difference between Army and, say, Harvard and Carolina or whoever you think the other last place team was. I mean, obviously it wasn't Carolina because they got seeded, but was that big a deal? But I do want a legitimate 1 through 16 tournament. But to do that, you have to generate more money because you're going to have more flights.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm excited for this. It's probably my most favorite aspect of this whole interview. We got producer Corey here. He's going to play us a compilation of your best one-liners. And after each one, he's going to pause, and you got the floor. We want to hear what was going through the mindset, how you came up with it, and just get us inside your brain. So producer Corey is going to cue it up here. Now, I'm excited for this.
Now Perkovic gets a pick from Masello. Gets picked up by the shorty. Jump shot anyway! Oh my! We are witnessing one of the greatest individual performances in this championship's history.
Electric.
What was going through my mind was, holy bleep, Notre Dame might pull this off. That's the Denver game, right? Because Sergio has 2 monster performances, but that's the Denver game. I can't say this during the broadcast. Obviously you're supposed to be Switzerland, and I think I did a pretty good job of being Switzerland. But, I thought that was the year. I thought that was the team. Denver was awesome, and Denver was the better team for about 55 minutes. And then Sergio decided to be a one-man wrecking crew. And I was, really, I think you can hear it in my voice. It's, holy crap, what is he doing? How is he doing this? Bill Tierney, one of the greatest defensive coaches, it became, he was just running through guys. He was running through checks and scoring from, Harrisburg. Those shots, if that was in the PLL or MLL back then, I guess they would have been 2-pointers. Yep. So that was going through my mind was, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, when you're talking about Sergio Perkovic and Notre Dame and just absolutely taking over, what was going through your mind yesterday with Matt Traynor? I mean, because one, Notre Dame to break that zone needed a Sergio Perkovic, and two, Matt Traynor. When I was watching that game, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what Sergio Perkovic did to Denver in the Final Four. Was it reminiscent? Were you thinking that?
I mean, look, give him all the credit in the world. He was taking some really good players to the hoop. I mean, he took Will Donovan to score. Will Donovan's an All-American. I know there was one play where they kind of mixed up who was on him when he went kind of airborne, which kind of sparked their comeback. But there's one play where he goes right down the middle of the field where he's got to get dumped on his tush. I'm not saying dirty play. That's just basic lacrosse. You cannot go down the middle of the field, and there's defenders there to slide who need to take the body. Look, they didn't. He scored. He had a ridiculous game, but what was going through my mind at one point was, come on, will somebody put him on his ass?
Yeah. No, it was nice, though, I will say, for the X discourse yesterday, because a lot of people did share that sentiment. Nobody wanted an injury or a dirty play, but everybody kind of
fundamentals.
You
come through the middle, you got to lay body.
Right, it's fundamentals. Like when he's dodging down the middle and you slide, you slide with your shoulder into the gut and make him go through your body. Again, I'm not saying slash him in the head with the stick. I'm saying level him, cleanly.
Yeah,
definitely.
I like that. All right, Cor, what do you got next?
Pull the trigger. Advantage Carolina here. Cloutier just too big, just too big, just too big.
Just too big, yeah.
With Cloutier obviously being a big cat himself, just too big just kind of flowed naturally to you.
Completely. He was a beast. The funny thing is when you actually see him, he's not that big. I mean, he's kind of like a fire hydrant kind of guy. But he was a beast for Carolina that whole postseason. He was having a heck of a day, and you could just see that matchup was not going to work for Loyola. Once they said they ended up with a matchup of a shorty on him, and he just basically bowls over the shorty, and he kept coming, so I kept saying it. So it was definitely just completely natural.
I love that. All right, Cor, what do you got next?
7 seconds for Reese. He's going to keep it. Right down Broad Street, he scores! The step goes right down Charles Street, and here comes Rafa. Right down Hempstead Turnpike.
What's your favorite is the most iconic one?
I can't go totally Notre Dame on all this one. I'll go right down Charles Street.
It's got to be Charles Street. The Charles Street's one if I had to pick one.
I feel like. So we used to do Hopkins all the time. Our deal was, and I think they still have the deal, we had to call every Hopkins home game. It was kind of like a Notre Dame football contract. So, and where we stayed, the hotel was, you drove right down Charles Street to get to Homewood. It was, for those of you who have been to Baltimore, it's, or at least have watched The Wire, it was an amazing drive because we went through about 3 completely different neighborhoods. Hey, this is a really nice place to live. Please don't hit any red lights. Okay, now we're near Hopkins. And then you make the left on University. But so it's like this 15, 20-minute tedious drive down Charles Street. So I'm calling a game, and this long pole has on the fast break. I think his name was Chris Leitner, and he keeps coming. And, look, I played LSM for a couple of years. You all know that moment when you're like, okay, they're not going to pick me up. All right, they're not going to pick me up. So you see it, and they're letting him go. And, an hour and a half ago, I had just driven right down Charles Street. So I go, here he goes, right down Charles Street. And he stuck it. The worst was when you say right down Charles Street and they shoot it in the 10th row. That was the worst. But he nailed it. Quint watched the game later that night, I guess, texted me right down Charles Street. Love it. So then, a lot of people say right down Broadway, right down Main Street. We've all gone to college. We all know every college in America has that one strip of great bars, that one strip where if our team would win the national championship, we'd all go at. So my next game was at Virginia. I was at an event, and I met Adam Gittleman, the goalie, and John Holdy, and I said, all right, I'm going to Virginia. What's the street? They go, Rugby Road. Yep. So sure enough, I got lucky. Chris LaPierre, a great midi for Virginia, had this goal against Syracuse where he went like 20 yards down the middle of the field. Right down Rugby Road, and he stuck it, and that was it. So now every town I went to, I wrote it down on an index card, had it in front of me, and away we go, right down Marshall Street, 9th Street, Franklin Street.
Just a staple.
Wow.
One of the best compliments I ever received, I thought, was when I was doing an NCAA tournament game at Brown, when they had that great team with Dylan Malloy. This alum from Brown walks up to me and says, Mr. McEneaney, here at Brown, we go right down Thayer Street. I'm like, all right, write it down. Here we go.
I love that. Classic. Cor, we got one more.
But you're right. You go there to the ACC championship, although Miles Jones, who has the ball, called it the toilet bowl. You beat Brown and get out of Atlanta with that win. What offense? That's why they call it execution.
So sick.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That fires me up. Brings
Fires
me back
me
to
up.
my childhood when you hear that tone.
You guys are making me feel old, telling me how young you were watching these games.
Well, there was like a run on Twitter where I had.
He's 2 years younger than me, and he makes me feel old. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what a form. You were saying like the lax power form. He doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, there's no more forms out there.
Yeah, you were saying also earlier
No.
like they were like, oh, they make fun of the announcers on the lax forums.
Yeah.
It's now on Twitter they go after the podcasters.
That's
Yes.
Well, I
yes.
watch that video.
Right.
New media.
I watch that video all the time too. Like every
Yeah, the
once in a while.
compilation.
And I remember one time there's like a couple weeks straight where I commented, like I just had a bunch of clips from this game. And Eamon, you commented at me. You're like, I'm gonna have to start charging you commission for the amount of videos you keep putting up here.
I love
I'll
that.
take it. You know, it's funny. You guys brought up the forum. Back to the Charles Street conversation. There was literally a guy who came at me and said, "Don't you realize Homewood's on University?" I'm like, "Okay, you don't get it. You're not gonna get it. No explanation is gonna get it to you." But the execution thing came because I think it's the most overused word in sports, like in all sports, not lacrosse, but, you know, I'm sure you guys are football fans. You know, the coach will go for it on 4th and 3, and it's a horrible play, and he meets the media afterwards and says, well, the play was there. We just didn't execute. I'm like, yeah, great, you know? So it's also kind of an homage to Sam Rosen, the Rangers play-by-play announcer, who used to say that's a power play goal. You know, I use it for everything, but really when you run your extra man the way it was drawn up and you get a slam dunk, that's what I would try to save it for. That's why they call it execution.
That's the amount of times that I produced the crease dive by other lacrosse podcasts I helped out with. We had all the highlights of Eamon.
Yeah.
Time, room, bullseye, and it was. That's why they call it execution.
Yeah.
A little EDM. Some fan made it.
I love that. And we got one more. I think potentially the biggest one. Cora, let's hit it.
Brown's got one timeout left. Down by 1. Computer to
That's just get you fired up.
When they're lowering me 6 feet deep, I just want them playing that on repeat.
I was so upset with you guys because you said the last one was the last one. I was like, did we not put this time?
Of course, they got one more.
Yeah.
But walk us through. I mean, that's got to be the
iconic
fan
line.
favorite.
That's the
best
most
one.
Mike Bring bang.
Yeah.
Bang.
You know, I actually know Brendan Caputo pretty well now. I've met him a few times, and I told him once that was my favorite time room bullseye call, and I think I made his night. But obviously, that's a huge goal for him. It ties up the game in the national championship. But that kind of came completely naturally. You guys know lacrosse, we have our own little lingo. You know, we can't say a guy's open. That's their open shooter. That's their time and room shooter. So, you know, if you're on a call with the coach during the week, they say, you know, you can't let that guy get his hands free because he's their time and room shooter. So I would just say, you know, I would start to say time and room. And, you know, back to our friends at the Lax Forum, there was a guy giving me a hard time. Says, why can't he just say open? Why does he have to say time and room? So I'm a wise-ass New Yorker. I find out that bothers someone, I'm going to hammer it to the ground.
Yeah,
and
let's
that guy
go.
over and over again. So, and it kind of happened naturally. I don't remember the first time, but I grew up as a Knick fan. Everyone loves Marv. Marv Albert's great, but the radio announcer, Jim Carvallis, used to say bullseye. So, you know, some guy had a ton of room. So I said time, room, he scored, and then it was bullseye. And it was just kind of natural. And, you know, if I could be arrogant for 1 second, to me, I'm like, wow, that's like whoever discovered peanut butter and chocolate at the first time. I mean, that really works.
Game
so
time.
I ran with it. No, again, back to right down Charles Street, then shooting 10 miles high. There's nothing worse than time, room, safe. I mean, that is a buzzkill.
Definitely. I never thought of it that way. So I want to take a listen, get inside your head, walk us through. But now we're going to do something called blind rankings, where I'm going to tell you your most iconic taglines, and you have to rate them, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. But you don't know the next tagline. So I'm going to tell you one, and you have to put it at whatever you think it fits without knowing the next one. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So first one up, just too big, just too big. 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. Where do you put that?
Oh, okay. I would put that probably 3.
3. That's pretty safe.
Yeah,
I like that. I
safe
like
in the
that.
middle.
Oh, my.
I'll put that 4 because I should probably say something a little bit more than that. But, yeah, we like that. We'll put that at 4.
Time, room, bullseye.
Yeah, I'll give that number 1.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. That's why they call it execution.
Wow.
See, yeah, I got 2 or 5. You got 2 or 5.
You got 2 or 5.
He's
Yeah,
even
I know,
amazed
2
by
or
how
5.
good they are.
I guess I got screwed by the blindfold. I'll put 5 because I like the streets better.
Yeah, right down, Charles.
Street
You got
number
that at
2,
2.
yeah.
That's not terrible.
No, that's a good ranking.
That's pretty good.
That's a good ranking.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I want Doogs to kind of hit on the City Lax aspect, and we kind of want to hear, your relationship with City Lax, and obviously having the Kavanaughs and the Curse involved.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit just about City Lax. Curse, Kavanaughs, 2 of the grittiest families, 2 of the best lacrosse families we've been around.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about City Lax, and then talk about their initiative with the ground balls, and then I'll have a follow-up question after that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So, City Lax is next year, 2026, will be celebrating its 20th anniversary. So I've not been, thank you. I've been involved with it since I think about 2010. I got to know the guys when my sons were playing Little League. Matt Levine runs the Little League, but he also runs City Lax. So he asked me to sort of MC or host some of their fundraisers. So I got to know everybody. Then they asked me to join the board. Then that evolved into kind of a larger leadership role. And what City Lax does is it funds teams at public schools and underserved communities in New York City. And as a lacrosse fan and a New York City native, it's amazing for me to get to these games. This spring, nearly 3,000 public school students participated on lacrosse teams, and they love it. Saturday afternoon, when the whole lacrosse world was watching all those great games at Hofstra, I was at our 4 public school championship games on Staten Island, and it just dawned on me watching these kids play with passion and intensity in front of me while I'm watching the other games on my phone or keeping track of them. What if the lacrosse world knew more about this? Because I think that's really our biggest job at City Lax, is letting people know more about what we're doing. Because these kids, boys and girls, all across the 5 boroughs, fall in love with lacrosse just like you guys did. But they're picking it up too late, 9th or 10th grade. But they love it. Trying to diversify the sport, but really just trying to, give students an opportunity through lacrosse. The graduation rates are higher for high school lacrosse players in New York City. The college placement rates are higher because you guys know when you're on a team, you got to be disciplined. You got to show up to practice. You got to keep your grades up. You got to learn how to be coached up. So it impacts their lives in so many more ways than just teaching them how to catch and throw. And with the Kavanaughs and Kirsts, I'm old enough to remember back in the day in the late 1980s, Steve Alford, he's a coach now, but he was a great basketball player at Indiana. He got suspended because he posed for a charity calendar. He did it for free. He didn't get paid, but because back then you couldn't take advantage of your your profile or your celebrity. You couldn't take advantage of being a scholarship athlete, and that's apparently what he was doing. But anyway, that's besides the point. The point is that's how I knew that when NIL became a thing, that City Lax might be able to take advantage of it by hiring these guys to be ambassadors. So I looked around. Obviously I'm biased as a Notre Dame fan, but I know Notre Dame does an amazing job on social media. At the time, Pat Kavanaugh had more followers on social media than Brendan O'Neill. Those were the 2 guys I was thinking about. So I went with Notre Dame. What I didn't realize is that the school can't promote it at all. So the idea that they have great social media didn't help it at all. So I really didn't go into this, completely understanding NIL. I'm making a long story, but so we reached out to Pat and said, look, we want you to post on social media wearing our merch and saying, hey, I'm an ambassador for City Lax. And he said, yeah, that's cool, but I want to do something more than that. How about ground balls? How about I donate $10 for every ground ball I pick up, and we try to get fans to do the same. I'm like, done. So Pat did it, and we got lucky. He played a bunch of games. He picked up a bunch of ground balls. We got a lot of donors. He won the national championship. It was amazing. It was great exposure. People talked about it during the games. And so it was such a big deal, such a good success for us. I was going to let it lie. Pat had an extra year. I wasn't going to bother him. Let him go enjoy his time. In his last year, he's done enough for us. And then he reached out to me and said, why don't we want to do this again? I'm like, all right, sure. He goes, how about this time I do it with my brother Chris? I'm like, all right, great, Pat, we're in. So definitely. So again, we got even more ground balls because we got Chris picking up ground balls. And, you guys all do the clips, Kevin does a great job putting the clips together. I tell Kevin we're doing it. Next thing I know, all over the internet is a great man ball pickup. So, it gets a lot of attention for us. And we get to raise money. So again, it works out great. They won the national championship. We get a ton of exposure. Again, I'm like, all right, we're not, how many times can we do this? I'm going to leave Chris alone. And then I'm flipping around, social media during the summer, and I see that the Kavanaughs and the Kirsts, all the families, are doing clinics together. They did one at Chaminade. The next day they did one in Del Barton. And I'm like, well, if CJ and Chris know each other and are friends, why don't we get the two best players in the country to do it? So I reach out to Chris, and I have this idea. I said, if you're willing, if you're cool with me reaching out to CJ, he's like, done. So I reached out to CJ. He was pumped. And now we have a little rivalry or competition going between the two fan bases. Unfortunately for us at City Lax, Chris's season came to an end after 27 ground balls. But, he has more donors right now and has raised more money than CJ. So if you're a Cornell fan and you're out there watching it, hey, join the party. Let's go. CJ's picking up 10 ground balls a game. Hop on board. But,
exactly.
That was pretty amazing for us.
Yeah. That's exactly what I wanted to touch
on.
I wanted to touch on that when you talk about the grit that you saw in Staten Island and you're just looking over to see for what it felt like when you're watching the Cornell game, a slow day for CJ Kirst. What do you have? 4 points, 10 ground balls, 3 cause turnovers. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous stat line. You're talking about the two grittiest players in the country. What you do with City Lax, getting these gritty families, gritty players, people that these kids can look up to. It's really special what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been great for us. And, the first year we did it, the really cool thing about it was, as you might imagine, the kids growing up in New York City don't know anything about lacrosse, right? They don't have a high school down the block. They don't have a college nearby. It's not like their parents played or anything similar to what might be happening in suburbs across the country. So what they really just know is what their coaches are telling them. So when Pat came on board 3 years ago and we pumped the snot out of it on social media, they grew to that, and Pat in Notre Dame, luckily for us, is on TV a lot. So they really became lacrosse fans and became Pat Cavanaugh fans. And obviously that, Pat took off with the McAfee show. That's an amazing thing about it, through the connection with the Cavanaughs and Pat hitting that shot on Liam Enterman when he was there. Next thing you know, Pat McAfee's donating 600 sticks to us. So it's been an unbelievable win-win for City Lax, but it's really been cool to see our players and our students become bigger fans of lacrosse through Pat and now Chris and CJ.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Eamon, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
Legend.
Thank you, guys. And I'm glad we kept the Penn State questions to a minimum. Okay, I think it was only 2 or 3. But, congratulations to them, and look forward to watching them play.
Last one before you go. Who do you have winning the whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's Cornell over Syracuse. I think demons are exercised. That's
okay.
This is the site. This is the site of 2009.
It's the grave site,
if that's the matchup on Memorial Day, holy demons, Ghostbusters, get Bill Murray to do the open. I mean, that's going to be amazing.
He just effortlessly gave the best line of the weekend
Literally,
already.
yeah.
That might be on TV, but Eamon, thank you again.
Thanks, Eamon.
We got to get
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
As we continue with episode 17, Eamon, absolute legend. We got to give a big shout out. Duke Cannon. They're back.
The best in the business, baby.
Work harder, smell better. Moment of the week. We got a different bar of soap. Dukes, why don't you do us the honors?
Oh,
God.
We got a mic
down.
down.
Live in studio, folks.
That's that.
Live in studios.
That's
what does
that
it smell like?
salt.
What does it smell like?
That's that sawtooth will do to you.
It smells like a big-ass brick of soap.
It's a big-ass brick.
No, it says Sawtooth Alpine.
Really
Sawtooth is
no, I'm
great.
not even kidding. You threw this at me? Smell this.
Trust me.
What does it smell like?
It's in my shower right now. Sawtooth's in my shower right now.
Alpine Air Cedarwood. It smells.
I just want to say, if you're a dude out there and you're not using
I don't know
a
what
brick
you're
of
doing.
soap, you're a squid.
Yeah. If you're not using the brick of soap,
If
I don't know
you're
what you're
using
doing.
like Dove, come on.
My
Brick
God.
of soap.
You know what's
moment
even
of the week. What's the moment of the week? What
moment
is
of the
the work harder, smell better?
It's got to be the Matt Traynor Air Gate. Come on now.
Air Gate. So sick. Can we potentially say moment of the year?
I mean, Doogs, was that play of the year, you think?
I said it. I think it was a player of the year.
I think it is.
I mean, take down the back-to-back champs, have that, everyone always talks about that, the Heisman moment.
Yeah.
That players miss. I'm not even so sure CJ Kirst needs one this year.
Nah, he doesn't.
But, man, if it was a close race, talking about a Tewaaraton
Yeah,
moment.
that is
crazy. I mean,
And the moment,
watching
the
that
stage.
It would have been that moment if you're watching the Tewaaraton. Again, let's talk about runner-up then.
Yeah.
Where, just whatever. If it was a close race.
Yeah.
Matt Traynor has that, and he's 20 points behind someone. It was such a good play that it's all right, that was worth 25 points.
Yeah.
Definitely one of those plays. Kev, what were your initial thoughts on the moment of the week?
It was crazy. The way Matt Traynor took over the game, and then I had been saying, I think on last week's episode on TLN Live, I was like, Matt Traynor needs to play like a superhero. I didn't think he would literally go Superman and score that goal. That was
Literally.
incredible. I have all the respect in the world for him. I think he's an incredible athlete.
Yeah, moment of the week. Shout out Duke Cannon, hooking the boys up. Let's hop into the preview of what we're going to see, obviously, next week. Let's talk brackets. Holy Dukes.
I lost.
I think it's over.
I think it's over.
I think it's over.
RIP.
But there's still a way for you guys to get involved. We want you guys to comment on the top of this YouTube channel. Comment the loser, Dukes, what he should do. We've heard about some hot wings. That could be good. We've heard about some national anthem. Comment. If your comment gets the most likes, that's what Dukes is going to do.
100%.
What do you not want to do? At hot wings.
Dukes isn't scared of anything. I feel like he's up for any challenge.
He's a nice guy.
He's not going to get a tramp stamp, obviously, guys.
Yes,
Keep
yes,
it.
yeah.
Once again, please keep it to something we can actually do.
Yeah. I guess it's not like do something I can actually do.
I like that.
I got a 9 to 5.
I like do like hot wings, but like on an episode or something
Yes.
like that.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm down with that.
Comment. What do you guys want? Well, let's get into the preview.
Hottest wings in Albany?
Ooh, on site.
That would be
On
wild.
site?
I will
Let's
say,
like
though.
Atlas win. Miles Jones comes up.
Yeah.
Miles, you want a hot one?
Oh, he'll yeah.
Yeah, he won't. And I'm so dumb. I'll probably get the wing sauce in my eye or something. I just wish, man. I gotta say something. Going into next year, I gotta stop getting so addicted to the bits. Like I was filling it out, and I was just like, how funny would it be just
You're a
to put
bits
all
guy,
this?
but guess what? We talked to Eamon. You got to own your role.
Yeah.
You gotta own your.
You got to own your role.
Wait,
You gotta own your role.
before we go on though, can we give Kev a quick shout out for predicting the Final Four correctly? Come on now,
Thank
Kev
you,
knows
Hoagie.
ball, baby.
I
I got you,
appreciate
Kev.
that.
Dukes,
Kev, I got
Dukes,
you. Kev, I got
Dukes,
you.
quick question for you. Do you think somehow Kevin and Hoagie are related? Like they might have a. They're,
Me and Kev might be
We don't
twins.
know if their moms or dads are the same.
Seriously.
There's something out there.
Kev, me and Kev got it. Come on.
Kev went from finishing last of the regular season to blowing out
Yeah.
the
Yeah, he
championship
did.
bracket.
He
Yes.
did. Literally.
I like it. All right, let's talk about championship weekend.
Yeah, here we
Cornell
You gotta play your best ball in May, Kev. By the
State.
way,
That's right.
Cornell versus Penn State. Initial thoughts of this matchup.
Yeah, no, this is great.
And I think before we get into that, though, we're talking storylines. Bring us through all the storylines, potential storylines.
Yeah,
of the Final Four.
first off, this is the first game, like, the only game Cornell's lost
Yes.
this year. So Cornell, number one team, basically since the end of the first month of the season, probably the rest of the way. They're 16-1 right now. One loss. They were winning by 4 goals against Penn State before Jack Kaskanen got a penalty. And Penn State went on a 4-goal run, sent it to overtime, ended up winning 13-12 in overtime. That was their only loss the whole year. So that's the first thing, is like that craziness of a game that happened early on in the cold weather season. Now we're getting a rematch of it on the game's biggest stage.
Yep.
Second thing is, which I think is the craziest thing, the emotional effect for, Jeff Tambroni walking into Gillette Stadium in Foxborough for this game. Just to set the scene for you guys, Jeff Tambroni was the head coach at Cornell back in the day before he left to go take that job at Penn State. He coached Cornell to the national championship in 2009 in Gillette Stadium against Syracuse. They ended up losing in overtime. He's walking in that stadium, Jeff Tambroni, for the first time since he lost the national championship as the head coach of Cornell. He's coaching the semifinal game against his old school that he lost in the championship on that same field with. If he beats Cornell and advances to the championship, the team that he may see in the championship game is Syracuse, the team he lost to at Cornell on the same exact field. It's crazy
That's
that there's
another
a way.
reason why,
Oh
Kev,
my
I
gosh,
think
Team of Destiny.
It's too like Ghostbusters. You heard Amy talk about it. Like, it's too right there to not be true.
I know. Team of Destiny. It's right out there in front of us. I will say, you can't underestimate this. Last time when they played, the penalty, Jack Kaskanen, kind of fluky, right? Cornell has the tape. They can look at it. They can learn from their mistakes. Matt Traynor and Kyle Lehman did not play in that game.
Did not play.
They were
Good call,
injured.
Kev. They didn't play.
And they still won the game.
Yep, that's a great
And Matt
point
Traynor's
that not many
playing
know.
better than he has all season. I'm sticking with my bracket. I'm sticking with
I
Cornell.
love it.
Yep. Okay.
But
okay.
I'm scared about it.
And then talk to us about the other two teams. Storylines.
Yeah, no, so for me, like, no matter who wins this championship, right, there's a storyline for all 4 teams.
Yep.
Obviously, Penn State, their storyline, they've never won a national championship in their program history. They've never even played in the national championship game. The farthest they've gotten is the semifinal. So for them, Coach Tambroni to win a national championship, Penn State, blue blood, big football program, big brand school to win their first national championship program history. For the growth of the game, amazing.
Huge,
First
huge,
off the bat.
huge.
Cornell storyline, a blue blood historic program. They have not won the national championship since 1977. They have C.J. Kirst, one of their best players, if not their best player in program history, lost in the national championship as a freshman, has a chance to bookend it, end his career, national champion, and bring Cornell their first national championship since the late 70s. Yeah. Going on the other side of the bracket, you got Maryland. This Maryland team, obviously, they've been here before, been there, done that. But if you look at Logan McEneaney, he's played in the national championship game every single year that he has started in net for the Maryland Terrapins.
Crazy.
How crazy would it be for him to finish his career? He's going to go down as Maryland's all-time leader in basically every category, games played, saves, anything you want to say. For him to finish his career, all-time legend, cementing himself as one of the best Terps of all time. And then on the other side, Syracuse. First time in the Final Four since 2013. It's been 12 years since they've been here. The last time they won the national championship was in this exact stadium in 2009. For them to go back, kind of get that juju back of the early 2009, 2008. Before that, they were making the Final Four championship every year. Yeah. So them to finally win it, finally break through. Gary Gate get that monkey off his back. Can he do it? Can he not? Joey Spallina immediately has his jersey hanging in the Carrier Dome or the JMA Dome when he retires. No matter who wins, crazy storylines. I can't wait.
It's going to be exciting. We obviously talked about the team of destiny for Penn State. Doogs, initial thoughts about Game 1, Cornell versus Penn State?
It's a tough one. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this rematch. And again, like Kev pointed out, the Matt Traynor, they were down a bunch of starters, the Cascadon drama. Look, I will hold firm on this as well as Penn State played, as gritty as they were in that comeback. I just cannot close my eyes and picture them holding up the trophy. I do think at the end of the day, this has the makings of C.J. Kirst capping off the most historic season possibly in NCAA lacrosse history.
Yeah. It reminds me of and Kev, back me up here, like 05, Kyle Harrison undefeated national championship Tewaaraton. Is that true?
Mitch was 4 years old there.
Yeah. But no, it's going to be exciting. And do you say that because Penn State hasn't been to the dance?
To the championship?
Yeah.
No, it's not nothing to do with that. More than I do like to play the game. Like, close your eyes. When you see Memorial Day Monday, can you see this team?
The trophy.
I think with just how much storyline playing Cornell, playing Syracuse,
I just
what
feel like
he had.
When I close my eyes at night and I vision the dog pile, I find it hard to believe that that's not Cornell dogpiling on one of those corners. I've seen it all year. I think they're just gonna do it. I can't see C.J. Kirst. It doesn't feel right unless I see C.J. Kirst with that big smile on his face while his brothers are pointing to him in the stands and he's running over with the trophy. That just seems like
it's so
destiny.
It's so perfect. It's so
perfect.
Doing it for his brothers that couldn't get it done at Rutgers. Doing it for his dad.
Yeah. What a better family too. I would say they are the best family in the sport of lacrosse.
The best family that's ever won it.
Yeah.
Really think about it.
You're telling me you can't see him running with that thing in the air. His brothers are in the stands.
It makes me remind of when Peacock came on. He said, I could still see any of these teams winning.
Yeah.
I could still see it. And I think kind of leading us into that second game, like Maryland versus Syracuse, in your eyes, is that the bigger game?
I mean, that's blue blood wise. That's the big game. That's the second game. Look, that game's going to be really interesting to me because it's Maryland's defense versus Syracuse's offense, right? Yeah. And the bottom line is you can never count out Maryland in any of these games because what they've shown is even if they don't win at all, they usually make the championship game too. They very rarely lose in the semifinal round.
Yeah.
To me, the one question I really have, and I'd like to know what Kev thinks about this offensively for Maryland, even if you ask that defense, hold them to 12, can Maryland – I don't know if Maryland can get 13. I really don't. I don't know if Maryland can get enough. That offense, I just don't know if they have enough firepower to hold a team like Syracuse.
Kev, your biggest worries with Maryland?
Honestly, I don't have as many worries about Maryland. I'm on Maryland in this game, and when they played each other earlier this year in College Park – they held Syracuse to 7 points. Yeah. I do agree that they have to figure out who their guy is going to be to score. They only scored 9 against Georgetown. That was enough for them to win. I think they're in a little different boat than Notre Dame, and maybe they can get to 12 and count on winning. But that's just the way they've done it all year. Yeah. I don't have as many concerns. My concerns are more on the Syracuse side. Like, we just saw Joey Spallina run past Colin Molshine, and then he said what he said in the interview. Well, guess what? Now everyone's going to be watching you to see if you can dodge on Will Schaller. And that's a lot tougher. You're not going to be able to run by him. He had 2 goals and 2 assists last time they played. But again, Syracuse only scored 7 points. It wasn't enough. He's
going to
have to score unassisted goals.
John Mullen's a monster. I think he's a monster.
Yeah.
I think he can take over
I'm
a
not
game.
falling for the bait. I was trying to do my own research into something that I saw on Twitter. But are we saying that Maryland is going to beat? We're saying Maryland's going to beat Syracuse.
Yeah, wait.
Right?
First of all, picks here. Who you got? Cornell, Penn State. Who you guys got? Who you rolling with? I'm taking Cornell.
I think
I'm
Cornell
going with Cornell.
just does it.
Doogs.
I'm going with. Damn it! Are we doing the TLN thing?
Are we doing a graphic?
Are we doing the four across?
This is just
It's just for the show.
Okay.
Cornell.
Cornell.
All right, second game. I got Maryland over Syracuse.
Maryland,
Maryland. So yeah, so why
got
are we talking
Maryland.
about Maryland?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's just start the preview for next week.
Yeah.
All right, Penn State. We got Penn
No,
State.
but
Syracuse.
dude,
But
I wanna
that's
ask
even
you this.
setting up even more for CJ Kurz. To bookend it, lost to Maryland as a freshman in the
Exactly.
Natty, beat Maryland in the national
See, I
championship.
keep
Dude,
Hogan!
it's even better, dude.
I keep talking about these storylines of Penn State.
James!
Cornell's got the same ones.
Oh,
Cornell's got the same ones. That's why this year is so exciting.
so
It's
exciting.
so exciting.
Great
Every
year.
team that wins is like has kind of their own storybook storyline.
Something special, no matter who wins, is going to be something
I
special.
also like this factor to it. There is no matter of factness this year. There is no. I don't think anyone could say about any game like. I'm sure for podcast effect, I've said like some crazy stuff, but any team is beatable this year.
Yeah.
There's not one team that'd be like, no, like there's no chance they could lose. Like last year's Notre Dame team was so good.
Yeah.
That 2022 Maryland team was so good.
Yep.
There's not that all-time great team. All
No.
four of these teams are beatable on any given day, which makes it's going to be the perfect weekend.
Another random
Perfect
thing
weekend.
too, and maybe I don't have the one thing I actually don't have.
What? What were we gonna say?
Can I tell you a fact that I think I think I knew back in the day, but I think that some fan, maybe some young cat out there, that's probably Mitch doesn't know this.
Some young hit.
Kev, you know the Syracuse fact? You see that floating on Twitter the other day?
What is it?
The Syracuse guys on Twitter the other day. What?
No, the Syracuse stat the other day.
What is
Oh,
it?
what was it?
Their quarterfinal record since 1980, from 1980 to 2009. Or 2009, yeah. They lost one quarterfinal game.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They went to...
Dude, you're supposed to save that for the stat of the day.
Yeah.
God damn it!
I want to know this too. I don't know if we can put this up on the screen. This is like one of the one facts.
Oh, wait. I think it was 1983. So
83.
83, 84, 85, 86.
Well, in Doogs' eyes, lacrosse didn't exist then.
As God,
doesn't count.
As God intended, brother.
I don't know if this. I'm gonna have to look it up. This is one fact I don't know. Maybe we could pop it on the screen right now.
Why don't
but
we just give this? Why don't we just give facts like they're?
one of the most underrated things that I'm pretty sure if we go back the last decade, the teams who've played the first 12 o'clock game have had the advantage in the championship game. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm pretty sure it's like 8 out of 10 for the team who played the noon game ended up winning the championship instead of the second.
Okay,
game.
I got to look into that though. We got to do a deeper dive into that because is that just like the 1-4 game? And is it usually like the one seeds in that?
No, they don't
You know
always.
what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah.
Is
no,
it?
but there is something. Isn't there something out there with Tillman not liking to play the second game?
Well, they
because of
moved the
that?
games up. If you remember back in the day, the games were like the second game was at like sometimes 5, or even
Yeah.
if you go back even farther, like 7:30 back at the M&T Bank days, like the Schmel Bratton Virginia days. They were playing those games at 7:30, but the rest time on the
Kev?
back end is not there. So,
Yeah.
they moved them to 12 and 2:30. So
Yeah.
I know the coaches Tillman. He always knows he's always getting that 2:30 game because
Yeah.
it's Maryland. He don't like it. He wants
he
a
does not
noon
like
game.
it. He wants an earlier game. I think that brings us right into our start bench cut though.
Oh yeah.
Championship weekend is set, and we've got great news. The Lacrosse Network has merch of all 4 teams, including Syracuse, Penn State, Cornell, and Maryland. Go to shop.thelacrossenetwork.com to check out all the latest gear and use code MPLS for 10% off your first order. Again, that's shop.thelacrossenetwork.com and code MPLS for 10% off. This week, nothing better. Championship weekend venue start bench cut. We got the Link, Philadelphia Eagles, Gillette, Patriots, M&T Bank, the Ravens. Let's get into it. Kev, I'm going to start with you. Lincoln Financial, Gillette, M&T Bank.
Wow.
All right. I'm definitely starting Lincoln Financial. Maybe a little biased as a South Jersey guy, but I think that is the greatest sports complex in America for tailgating. All the stadiums right there, plenty of parking space, no rules. Very fun. If you remember the championship episode last year, very fun. So I'm going to start the Link. And it's also geographically, the way it's in the middle of multiple fan bases, multiple hotbeds. I like the
Easy
way
spot.
Philly can pull them all together. I'm going to bench M&T Bank They're number 2 for me. Haven't had it in a long time. Honestly, memory's getting a little hazy. But I know the way that Maryland shows out when they put a big game in their backyard. Just last weekend, we saw in Annapolis over 1,700 fans showing up at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. That, to me, shows that was an NCAA quarterfinals record, by the way. That shows the game's growing, and also Maryland is leading that growth still. And then last, I got to cut Gillette just because 100% geographical. It just feels the most farthest out there. I know there's still a New England hotbed. I know that's a great place to give out titles, but to me, Gillette is just too far away from the hotbeds.
Doogs, I want you to go next.
I'm starting Gillette. Yep. I'm starting Gillette.
I knew that too.
I think the geographical thing, it's literally placed perfectly in the middle of New England. It's close to Providence. It's close to Boston. It's easy to get to from upstate New York.
Providence?
It is. It's 45 minutes away from Providence.
Yeah, what about Jersey? What about Maryland? What about Baltimore?
Yeah.
What about Annapolis? What about all those?
Are you saying Providence is a hotbed?
Do you know how easy it is to get from
about Long Island?
Upstate New York to Foxborough? It takes 3.5 hours to get to Foxborough from Long Island.
From Long Island to Baltimore, I think it takes 4 hours.
Yeah. So I'd much rather go to Foxborough. I also think Patriot Place is awesome. I think it's a great stadium to watch lacrosse. I've had great memories there. A bunch of Final Fours I went to there. There's a special place. Obviously, I'm a Patriots fan, so obviously it plays a factor into it. I think it's a great location. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. I think also just even going to like the PLL weekends, like we had so much fun at Patriot Place right after.
Yeah, we did.
So I just like the setup they have up there. The link's awesome. Kev nailed it. I'm not gonna. It's my cut. It's obviously in contention to start.
Yeah.
But again, I hate Philadelphia trash. Great city, but great city. Also, Cabrini won a national championship.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I knew you were gonna bring it up.
Can we really respect the link?
And Matt Nessler, can we respect that human?
Nah,
So you're starting Gillette.
Yeah, and then I actually went to MNT Stadium for my first Final Four.
Really?
2011, I want to say.
Yeah.
Nico Amato.
Yeah.
Steele Stanwyck.
Yes.
One of the worst experiences of my life.
Why?
No, that was so dramatic. But I just remember feeling so hot and so dehydrated after like one of those jamborees and just be like, get me out of here.
Yeah,
like,
it was
let me go to the
so
hotel mall. Let me go to like no shade there. And I was just like, one of those like childhood memories that's just instilled in my mind.
Yeah.
Just based off that alone, and I don't know what the vibe of the stadium was because it was just like too young. Cut.
Okay.
I'd love
Is
to
it
go
worse than
back there.
snapping your leg in half?
That's been Hassan High School after that place.
V?
Yeah, I mean, for me, look, championship weekend's my favorite. Maybe my favorite weekend of the year.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I look forward to
it
this
is. You
every
and
single
Kev.
year. It's bittersweet because it's my favorite weekend of the year, and then when it's over, I'm like, oh, no college lacrosse till February.
PLL, baby.
I mean, look, yeah, PLL is great. I can't wait for PLL to hop up, but college lacrosse is still just got a soft spot in my heart. But I mean, I've been to every single championship weekend since 2010 except for one. 2021 in East Hartford when Virginia won that game against Maryland. It's the only championship weekend I haven't been to. I've been to every single Final Four game and championship since 2010. So I've been to all the venues. I'm starting the Link. The Link's my favorite spot. I love the Link. Like Kev said, great parking lot, great tailgate vibe. Xfinity Live's great. Proximity to the city. You get a nice cheesesteak.
Yep.
Not too big, not too small. Awesome in there. I also love the natural grass. I know M&T's got grass now, but back in the day it was turf.
Yep.
And I just think, it's so many iconic games and moments there. You think of like the Maryland Brown semifinal game, the Chris Cloutier OT winner, all those games that have been played. I'm starting the Link. That's my favorite spot. It's right in the middle, great location in the middle for everyone to come. I'm benching M&T Bank. Last time it was at M&T Bank, Jordan Wolf was running away from a Notre Dame double team to stamp a back-to-back national championship, and it hasn't been back since, which is upsetting because that's one of the best spots too. I mean, the Inner Harbor, that whole area growing up was awesome. I think they deserve to have it back there. And then I'm cutting Gillette. If we're talking just stadium, we were there for the PLL last year. They have one of the best jumbotrons in the league. Beautiful stadium, Patriot Place, A+, bars, restaurants. The problem is the accessibility. They don't have a ton of hotels. It's kind of a little far for people like me from New Jersey, and even if you go even more south down Maryland like you, it's kind of a hike to get up there. So that's my only knock on them. But I'm starting the Link, benching M&T, and cutting Gillette.
Well, like going back to the Syracuse fans, I mean, I'm excited to see their access to Gillette this weekend because it's a short ride for them.
Yeah.
How long?
It's probably going to be less than 2 hours.
I mean, Syracuse fans would show up if they had the Final Four. In
they would go to Florida.
That's a day trip now.
What do you got, Mitch?
That's a day trip now.
I'm starting the bank.
I know you're starting the bank.
God, it's the Mecca. Kev's probably been there once, Doogs. Not allowed. He's
I was there
banned in
before you were
Hoagie.
born.
The bank. It should be at the bank. I know we gotta grow the sport. We do this whole thing, but like to not have it there for now, what, 13 years? Like
2014 is the last time.
Come on, like what? There is not a city announced for 2026, so I don't know who makes that call.
Yeah.
I like Hartford too.
I hated Hartford.
Yeah, I hated it too.
I don't think I could have loved Hartford more.
No, it
I
didn't
loved
feel
it
like
too,
championship.
Doogs.
Kev,
Hartford.
The weather sucked.
No, it sucked.
Hartford,
I
like who's going to Hartford?
I think I legitimately, if you put this on the list, I think I would have started it.
I'm not gonna lie. For someone who's been to all those championship weekends, it didn't feel like championship
Yeah, it
weekend to
It
be in
was
Hartford.
awesome.
It was fun.
No.
It was so fun.
I think you guys are the small majority
The
who liked
tailgates,
Hartford.
the tailgates there were just as wild as any Final Four I went to. It was like kind of all on top of each other. I absolutely loved Hartford.
You didn't make it as much of a weekend though as usually
Yeah.
you do, where like the hotels in the city. It just felt like you're kind of in the middle of. It felt like a quarterfinal game for
Yes,
championship
yes.
weekend.
That might be the takeaway, though. It's all about the tailgate and the party that you're with.
It's the tailgate. It's the fans that show up. It was like not. I didn't. Sometimes I hate how the tailgates can be so.
See, I thought the
spread
Notre
out.
Dame tailgate was better last year than when the Maryland tailgate was.
Yeah.
The Virginia tailgate 2000. I'll give them this. The Virginia tailgate 2021
21.
was the best tailgate I've been to.
Who do you think will have the best tailgate this year?
Maryland always does it well.
Cornell's was big in 22.
I think Penn State will have a crazy
I
one though.
think Penn
Yeah.
State.
Yeah.
Penn State
I
would
think
probably
Penn
have the
State's
biggest.
gonna have the best one.
Gosh.
Penn-
All right, I'm going to finish mine out. I'm benching the link with the venues all around. You're kind of in like a campus.
We've had a
vibe.
great time at the link. the
Yeah,
last
it's been
couple
great. And then I'm cutting
Gillette.
And I just think 'cause it's so far from me. It's out there, you know. Duke's like it's close to Providence. Like who goes and lives in Providence?
It's literally in the middle of New England, so everyone can get there easily.
I know it's not in Boston, but that's really gonna do it. And Dukes is gonna go to you for a fun fact. Kev,
I got one.
what do you got?
The Ohio State boys benched the one place that Ohio State has played.
We lost. Why would I want to start it?
You guys lost?
In the championship.
Oh, damn.
But you have an announcement, Mitch.
Wait, I thought that.
Where are we going to be next week? Episode.
We're gonna be on site,
Live
baby.
at
Ohio State boys going back to the Final Four.
Me.
The Italian, baby.
If you guys see Dukes like trying to buy a hot dog on Monday, please slap him in the head.
Yeah.
We will see you guys in Gillette. Peace. Before we end the show, our hearts and condolences from the Mitchell Pehlke Lacrosse Show go out to Dylan Vaselik. A real trooper out in Ohio, passed away on the field. Playing for Bay Village. The link is in the top of this description if you guys want to get involved and donate, get back to the family. I know they're going through a tough time, and we're praying for you guys.